Hello, Tenthis. I welcome you all to the One Short series. My name is Kanchan and I'm your social science teacher. Today we'll be starting with the first book of your social science, that is history, and its very first chapter, that is the rise of nationalism in Europe. Yes, so before we start, let me tell you, please be ready with your NCRT books, your notebooks, your stationery items, a water bottle, definitely, if you wish to have sip in between the lecture, right? And if possible, some snacks. After all, some food for brain is important too, isn't it? Okay, so I know this is a huge and very long chapter, but nothing to worry. We'll be covering it with small gaps also in between. I'll be giving you. So yes, let's get started with the chapter of the rise of nationalism in Europe. So before we go into this chapter and find out what all subtopics we will be studying about, let's try to understand the caption of this chapter. Fine. Students, I think that before understanding any concept, if the meaning of the concept or the chapter is clear, I think the half of the work is done then and there only. So let's understand. Fine. So the name says the rise of nationalism in Europe. So here basically we see three important words: rise, nationalism, and Europe. Fine. Rise, that is to say to come up. Fine. Just like the sun rises in the east. Okay. Europe, we know it means what? Yes, it is a place, it's a continent with 44 countries. But let me tell you, this Europe was not the same in its past as we see it today. Yes, the Europe was being dominated by and ruled by various different dynasties, and it was divided into various different kinds of empires like Habsburg Empire. Fine, there was a time even when Muslim rulers like Ottoman Empire, they even ruled a part of Europe. Fine, and in these areas, the monarchs or the kings, they had the absolute power. That is to say, the Europe was having absolute institutions in it who used to rule Europe. Fine. And yes, king used to command loyalty from their subjects. Yes. Okay. And the today's Europe that we see, it was all because of the changes in the political boundaries of Europe, and that happened because of the emergence of the feeling of nationalism. Yes. So with this, we come to the point that what do we mean by the meaning of this word, that is nationalism. Okay. So nationalism is basically what? It is an ideology, right? It is an ideology, or you can say a movement. Movement for what? For making nations. Yes, for making nations. In the past, Europe and the entire world was divided into various kingdoms or duchies or cantons, right? But there were no countries that we see them as today. Fine, there were kingdoms and not the nations. So yes, with this we got to know, like, there is a terminology that is nation. So what do we mean by that? So a nation is basically is one in which the majority of its citizens, they not only develop a sense of common identity and shared history or descent. That is to say, basically a group of people with some commonness, let's say commonness of any culture, tradition, religion, language. With that, they come up together, and not only citizens but also the rulers as well, and they decide to form into a nation. Fine. And in that, one of the philosophers, he added that nations are not only built on the commonness of some culture or traditions only, but also with that of shared history and descent. That is to say, those group of people, they should have gone through some common struggle or some common past to culminate into themselves the feeling of nationalism in them for their particular nation. And that philosopher was Ernst Renan. Yes. So you can say that nation state is a kind of sovereign state in which people, they got united together and they are attached to their nation. Fine. Yes. In the 19th century, what we saw that the nationalism, it emerged as a force which brought about sweeping changes, that is to say, the complete changes in the political and mental world of Europe. Yes, the way Europe was to be like in the sense of politics, in the sense of social society, in the sense of economy and all, there was complete change. There was sweeping change in Europe, right? And it was all because of the feeling of nationalism. So actually, we will find out and dive into the various incidents and events in this chapter to see that how this feeling of nationalism was developed in Europe gradually. Yes, and let me tell you, before this concept of nation state, there used to be the modern state. Now, what do we mean by modern state? So, modern state is one in which power is centralized, one thing, right? It is centralized and it is exercised by sovereign control, that is to say any monarch, fine, and it is over a clearly defined territory. That is to say, modern states, they are ruled by centralized power and authority over a defined territory. But nation state is like the group of people, they are coming together and they are forming nations, fine, along with their rulers. So modern state is one which is ruled by a sovereign control over a defined territory, but in nation state, people are coming together out of some commonness. Fine, and that commonness may be anything: culture, tradition, religion, some common past, some decent history, some struggle together in the past, right? And then they are forming their respective nations. Fine. Yes, in nationalism, we see the people or the group of people, they put the interest of a state before their own particular interest, their respective, or we can say like their own respective selfish interest, right? State or the country or the nation, they come first for them. Fine. This we can say is a kind of positive aspect of nationalism, right? That nationalism does what? It generates pride in one's own sovereignty and culture. Also, it is a kind of desire of making one's own nation. Fine. It is a kind of, you can say, enthusiastic patriotism. Yes, patriotism. Yes. So there is a difference between nationalism and patriotism. Let me tell you. Fine. So I hope you understood the positive aspect of nationalism. But when we go into the extreme nature of nationalism, as even Albert Einstein said, that it may lead to militarism and aggression. Yes, students, in this chapter also, at the end, we will see what? That because of this extreme nationalism and the coming up of a new concept of imperialism, both these concepts of nationalism and imperialism, they both culminate into what? World's disastrous event of First World War. Yes, so the extreme form of nationalism says that it may lead to wars and genocide, and it actually happened in the past. Fine. So the basic difference between nationalism and patriotism is what? Nationalism means love and pride for one's own country. Definitely. It is a kind, but it is also a kind of superior belief in one's own nation. Whereas patriotism is also love and pride for one's own country. But but the patriots, they don't think anything ill, or they do not consider the other nations inferior to them. It's just that they just think about themselves, and they just think about their pride and love for their own country, right? They do not have anything to do with the other nations. But in nationalism, the belief says that like it is superior to all. Fine. So it's we can say a minute difference between nationalism and patriotism. So I think with this, we understood the meaning of nationalism, right? And also the meaning of the caption of this chapter, that is the rise of nationalism in Europe. You know now what kind of Europe was there in its past, and the way it is today it has gone through so many, like there are so many historical struggles and events, and in this chapter we'll be studying about all that during the 19th century of your Europe. Fine. Okay. So now let's go into and see what all subtopics are there that we'll be studying, and find out how this feeling of nationalism developed in Europe and which leads into the making of various nation states. Fine. Okay. So I think we are done with the introduction part here. Fine. In background, we will be looking into one of the beautiful paintings being made by a French painter, that is Frederick Sorrow. Fine. And we will see his utopian vision about the world that he painted in 1848. Fine. Moving further, we'll learn about the French Revolution. I know that you did that already in your class 9th, but yes, again, there will be a small recap of that, and adding to that, there will be a rule of Napoleon Bonaparte as well. Fine. Yes, and also how did France added to the concept of making of nation. Fine. Moving further, we'll see into how, means what all kinds of different classes were living in Europe during that time. But before that, we'll also see the what kind of Europe was there in political terms. Fine. As I told you right now, like it was divided into various kingdoms. So we'll be looking into the example of Habsburg Empire. Fine. Moving further, we'll understand the concept of liberal nationalism. Yes, students, the chapter is basically divided into various themes like your nationalism, liberalism, romanticism, conservatism, but simultaneously the series of facts and events will also go in the chapter. Fine. So there is nothing to be confused about. I'll be there to clarify between all these themes and events. Fine. Okay. Yes, then we'll be learning about conservatism, but that is like new conservatism. This new conservatism will come after the defeat of Napoleon in the Battle of Waterloo in 1815. Fine. Let me tell you, like in this chapter, we will see like during a particular years, some kind of theory or some kind of concept will go on, and the events and history will go as per that concept. For example, we'll start with like the rule of Napoleon since from 1804 till 1815 till his defeat, and we'll find that till that time people like the rule of revolutionaries was there in a way. Fine. After this, we will see from 1815 till 1830 there is a rule of conservatives. Fine. That is your monarchs. Again, they will come up again in the rule. Fine. Then we will dive into the various revolutionary struggles from 1830 till 1848. Let me tell you again, these struggles will start from France only. And yes, there is an interesting saying being given by one of the important person that when France sneezes, the entire Europe catches cold. Yes. And with that, like proving that point, the in chapter also we will see everything starts with France only. Fine. See, our chapter is also starting with France. Our world history, even like that you have started in your class 9, it even started with France. Fine. And also means the different phases, they also begin with France itself. Yes. So the age of revolutions, in this we will see the different revolutions taking place from 1830 till 1848. Then the very beautiful concept of romanticism, that is the cultural movement. Yes, culture, like how culture plays an important role in the development of nationalist feelings among the people of Europe, right? So yes, the cultural movement or the romanticism we'll study about here. Then in 1848 again some revolutions we'll see, and that also happened how when France it became republic for the second time in 1848. And once France became republic, the entire Europe wants the same thing. So again, the series of revolutions they started happening there. Fine. Then we go into the unification and making of some states or countries, that is your Germany, Italy, Britain. Finally, we will visualize the nation with the help of some allegories, right? And finally, we'll see the concept of nationalism and imperialism. At the end, some important dates and years which which are mentioned in the chapter, a list of being given there. Fine. So this is what we are going to study in the chapter. Fine. So as we are clear with the name or the caption of this chapter, now let's get start with this beautiful painting of Frederick Sorrow. Yes, Frederick Sorrow has actually made 4 paintings in series. Fine. And we will be studying about his one of those paintings. Fine. So, the painting is made by Frederick Sorrow and it was made in 1848. The name of the painting is what now? Again, it's a huge name. It's a beautifully huge painting drawn by him and also the name is also so big. Fine. It's like the dream of worldwide democratic and social republics, the pact between nations. And students, you have to learn the name also. Yes, you might get 1 mark question about this, like who made the painting, in which year, and what was the name of the painting. Fine. Let me tell you, it was a utopian vision, and it was a vision of actually Frederick Sorrow. Students, do you know what? Like even a plane, an aeroplane was first made by whom? It was first made by an artist, right? Firstly, it was a vision of someone that later on became the reality. Fine. In simpler terms, let me put it like this. For example, if you have a vision of um, scoring more 95% marks in your boards, I think that only will fuel you, energize you to put your efforts and heart into your hard work, into your studies, and then it will really help you to fulfill your vision or accomplish your goal, isn't it? So yes, similarly here also we'll see that it was a vision of an artist. Like no doubt at that time he is just portraying or he is just expressing the opinions or the mindset of various Europeans of that time. Fine. Now let's understand the various features or minute details of this painting, because there that might definitely be come in your exam. Fine. Okay, so firstly, let's look at that there are group of people. Fine. And what all are they doing? They are marching. Fine. They are marching and paying homage to this beautiful Statue of Liberty. Fine. So, and it is not the same Statue of Liberty as there is in in New York, but it is the Statue of Liberty of Frederick Sorrow. Fine. So it's of different. Basically, it's a different idol, not that one. Okay. So yes, here what we see that men and women of all ages, fine, of all ages and social classes, they are marching in a long train. See, a long train is being made and they are offering homage, or you can say tribute, to the Statue of Liberty as they pass by it. As they are moving in front of it, they are paying homage and then they are moving forward. Fine. So first thing is this, that these are the people of Europe of different social classes and genders and ages. Second is what, like let's see, let's look at the Statue of Liberty. So here the artist of the time, basically the Frederick Sorrow we are talking about, he personified liberty as a female figure. Fine, he personified it as a female figure. We can recognize the torch of enlightenment. Like see, there is a torch of enlightenment here. Fine. She bears in one hand and the Charter of the Rights of Men. Yes, Charter of Rights of Men, not women. Right? Can you recall in the chapter of your class 9, the French Revolution, it was even mentioned there that women were not given equal rights for so long, right? And they had to fight a lot, right, for their rights, for the suffrage, even more than what the other people of the Europe they had to fight for. Fine. So yes, so it is, she is also having the Charter of the Rights of Man in the other and not the women part. Fine. So that is the thing. Moving further, then on the earth, like in front of this huge line in front of it. Here there are certain broken pieces of monarchy. Fine. So here we see the shattered remains of the symbols of absolutist institutions. Absolutist institutions means the monarchy system we are talking about. Fine. Absolutist institutions means those institutions which cannot be challenged by anyone. They are so much in power in themselves. Fine. They are very much powerful as such. So it is a kind of utopian vision. It is a utopian vision of sorrow. Fine. The people of the world are grouped as distinct nations. Obviously, they all are holding the respective nations' flags. Fine. Through the flags and their national costume. Fine. Every state has its, every country has its own national costume. So they are wearing that and they are holding the flags of their respective nations. Fine. And they are moving, they are marching past towards, like they are marching past by the Statue of Liberty. Fine. So in this procession, obviously it's a kind of procession going on. Fine. A huge train kind of thing they are doing, and they are passing by the Statue of Liberty. The states or the nations which passed by the Statue of Liberty are your United States and Switzerland. That is to say, they had already become what? They had already become the nation states till this time. That is your 1848. The painting was made in 1848, isn't it? Fine. And I during the at the time of telling you about the contents, I told you in 1848, France, it again became republic. Like first time it became in which year? You studied that in your 9th class. Let me know in the comment section. Fine. Okay. So second time it became republic in the 1848. Fine. So we will see France has just passed by. Here is the flag of France. Fine. So it has just passed by. Then what we'll see, like yes, it is means we can identify it with its tricolor. Moving further, we'll see the people of Germany holding black, red and gold flag. See, now 1848, the topic of that is the revolution of liberals. We'll find out that no doubt at this time, in 1848, people of Germany, they tried to be a nation state or a constitutional monarch, but due to some event, fine, that we'll find out in the chapter, what happened, that they could not become so. So, but still the painter had drawn this flag also here as a hope. Fine, as a hope that these people are also hopeful that they will also become what? They will also culminate themselves into a nation state. Fine, so it's a kind of hope for them. So yes, at the time when Sorrow created the image, German people, they did not yet exist as a nation. Fine, rather some event would happen and their hopes would also get shattered, but still the people are hopeful. Fine. And so the painter was. Okay, the flag they carry is an expression of liberal hopes in 1848. Fine, to unify the numerous German speaking principles into a nation state under a democratic constitution. Fine. Okay, moving further, following German people, there are different other peoples like who are holding the flag of Austria, Kingdom of the Two Sicilies, Lombardy, Poland, England, Ireland, Hungary and Russia. So yes, all these people are there. They are holding respective flags of their respective nation states and they are paying homage to the respectful Statue of Liberty, who is holding a charter of rights of men in one hand and holding torch of enlightenment on the other. On the foreground, there are shattered symbols of absolute institutions. And the last part, yes, from the above, fine, from the above we can see Jesus, angels, saints, and they all are blessing to this happening of Europe, right? That is to the making of nation states. Yes, at the end of the chapter also we will understand that yes, making of nation states, it's a kind of universal or a natural instinct. Fine. And so see, even people from above or the respectful symbols from above, divine symbols from above, they are also liking this feature and they are blessing them. Fine. From the heaven, Christ, saints, and angels, they gaze upon the scene. They are looking at this scene. Fine. And they have been used by the artist to symbolize fraternity among the nations of the world. Fine. So the Christ, angels, and Jesus, they are happy about it. They are blessing them, and also this shows they are happy about all the fraternity which is they which they see, which they could see among the nations of the world in the form of this procession which is going on. Fine. So it is a utopian vision of Frederick Sorrow. Okay, so before we go into the next topic of the chapter, let me tell you what all kinds of question you can get from here. So obviously, till yet we studied about nationalism. So you can have a question related to what do you mean by nationalism, what do you mean by nation state, what is the difference between a modern state and a nation state. Fine. And another thing, that the description of the utopian vision of Frederick Sorrow, maybe in whole or maybe any particular part of it, maybe to just describe the Statue of Liberty, maybe just to describe the symbol of Jesus Christ and saints. Fine. So yes, and also and yes, let me also tell you one more thing. From this chapter you will be getting one picture question for sure. Fine. You will be having chapter like means you will be having the exam, the theory exam for 80 marks, and in that it's let me tell you, it's really easy to score in social science. Yes, it just you need some strategies, you need some planning and full focus. That's it. So let me tell you, one question of picture will definitely come from here. So I have tried to cover a few of the pictures in this, and rest let me try to give you some other video for related to that, just related to the picture of this chapter. Fine. Else please read the NCRT. NCRT is really like your Bible for completing or for giving your board exams. Fine. Okay, so yes, now let's move further and let's go into the topic of French Revolution and your idea of nation. Fine. So before going into, let's take a water break. Let's take a sip of water. Fine. So yes, students, water break is over. I hope you also have taken your sip of water. Fine. Okay. So let's get started with the French Revolution and the idea of nation. So initially only, like at the starting of the chapter, I told you that when France sneezes, the entire Europe catches cold. So yes, so this feeling of nation state or this feeling of nationalism and the making of nation state, it emerged from none other than your France. Yes. So, but how did that happen? So that's what we had to study in this. Okay, so we know that yes, I told you that you had to recall a little about your 9th class French Revolution. So yes, we knew that King Louis XVI, he got into the throne of France in 1774. Fine, and he married to the Austrian princess Marie Antoinette. But poor fellow, when he came into the throne, at that time there was empty treasury in France, there was subsistence crisis, and in a nutshell we can say the entire societal and economical condition of France was in a like very devastating state, isn't it? Means the people were hungry, the population was exploding, and but still the and also the prices of the foods, they were increasing day by day. There was a system of feudalism and serfdom. Fine. The entire society was being tortured with the cruelty of first and second estate, in the form like first and second estates, they used to impose taxes on these poor third estate people. Fine. So there was a kind of devastating situation in France. Fine. And with that we saw the emergence or the coming up of middle class people who became educated with time, and due to industrialization they even earned some money. Fine. So with that little prosperity that those people earned, and also the education that they got, some different philosophies they come into existence, like the philosophy of social contract, separation of power. Fine. So yes, and the revolutionaries, after taking the tennis court oath, they took that pledge of tying knot, or we can say the tying bell around the dead cat of King Louis XVI, isn't it? That is to say, they took the pledge of making constitution and making France into a constitutional monarchy, right? And they were successful also in that. Fine. And that's why we saw that in 1791 uh, con- France became constitutional monarchy. Fine. And later on it even became republic. Okay. So because of these social and political upheavals in France, there was a transformation of the society from monarch to republic. Fine, this is very much clear. In nationalism, like in the concept of nationalism, what we understood, that there is some commonness. Fine. So these revolutionaries or these French people, how, like basically, in what way they created that commonness or collective belongingness together? So they took certain measures. Let me tell you, they took certain measures in which they created that commonness together, their collectiveness, or they created their collective identity. Fine. So firstly, they adopted the ideas of la patrie, that is the idea of the fatherland, then the idea of les citoyens, that is the idea of citizen. Fine. And with this ideas, they tried to create equality under the system. They made the society as everyone is below the France and they all are citizen in unanimity. Fine. So they tried to create equality with this. Moving further, they created a tricolor French flag, which obviously which overthrew the royal standard or the flag of monarchy, and rather they all adopted one color, one flag, one tricolor flag. The colors of red, blue, and white were chosen as the flag's color. Moving further, that they renamed the estates general. Yes, estate general meeting used to be there. Fine. They renamed it to National Assembly, who was elected by the body of active citizens. Fine. Yes, there was change in the administration system of monarchy with the advent of National Assembly. Fine. There were some suffrage given to propertied men and the men above the age of 25 years of age, and the one who can pay taxes of at least 3 days. Fine. So yes, equality was being tried to created in the form of socially or in society, but not in political fronts. Fine. So yes, only active citizens, they could participate in elections, and they can be the part of this National Assembly and they vote for it. Fine. So yes, estates general, they converted into National Assembly. Moving further, new hymns were composed, oaths were taken, and martyrs, they were being commemorated, right, in the name of the nation. Fine. So it is similar to, like, for example, even our various songs, our own Indian songs related to, like, for example, Jai Ho of Slumdog Millionaire or Vande Matram of A.R. Rahman, right? So basically, whenever such kind of songs are played, we all have goosebumps, right? We all get goosebumps, isn't it? On our respective Republic Days or Independence Day, what happens? The entire country of ours, it celebrates it, isn't it? It's not like that only one part of country is celebrating and not the other. Fine. Even nowadays we know matches are going on. Today is 29th. Yes, today only there will be a final match of T20, that is India versus South Africa, isn't it? And we all are excited, though we are not playing there, isn't it? We are not going to have that trophy, but we are so excited for this. So yes, these are the things also that connects all of us, isn't it? Yes. So these people, these revolutionaries, they took that chance, right? They took that pledge of creating belongingness together in France amongst themselves with all these measures or with all these steps taken. Fine. Moving further, centralized administration system was organized, which introduced various uniform laws. Fine. Even internal custom duties were abolished. That is to say, from moving from one place to another, everyone has to pay some of the taxes and others, right? Like moving in a country itself, they had to pay taxes and something. So they abolished that. Fine. But yes, other uniform law systems were introduced. Regional dialects were discouraged and French language was given encouragement. That is to say, again creating commonness together. Fine. And finally, a uniform system of weights and measures were adopted. Fine. So with all these measures, the revolutionaries of France, they tried to bring collectiveness or collective belongingness and common identity amongst the people of France. Fine. And students, let me tell you, you can get direct question related to this in your board exams. Fine. The question may go like this, like in what way the revolutionaries of France created the identity of commonness among France, and which build into the concept of nation state. Fine. So in this way you can get a question, but yes, there is a direct question and you have all these points here. So short 5 marks you can fetch here. Okay, moving further now. So with these measures, the revolutionaries, they tried to bring commonness in France, and with this they are moving towards the making of the nation state of France. Fine. So yes, and that's why what happens further, that other nations or other areas of Europe, they will even start fighting for being a nation state, because yes, if France has something, they also want that. Simple, as simple as this. Okay, so these revolutionaries, they no doubt struggling for themselves, struggling for making their own nation, that is France. Fine. But then what happened, like they took that as their life purpose or their mission, of their mission being given to them by God or Almighty or something. They thought it that it's their life mission now to liberate Europe, means to liberate the people of Europe from this despotic rule of monarchy, right? They thought that now it's their life mission to overthrow absolutist institutions from the entire Europe. So they started acting accordingly. Fine. Even getting inspired from French people or French revolutionaries, people around Europe, like students, women, educated middle classes, they started settling up, like they started setting up the Jacobin clubs. Fine. So you can see how, means in a great way, like France is such an influencing character of Europe, isn't it? So yes, it had influenced actually. Fine. And also revolutionaries, they themselves are doing something or the other to free Europe from this despotic rule of monarchy. So yes. Okay, moving further, in this scenario when revolutionaries were fighting with monarchy, fine, see, in what way the administration of France worked in past. See, till 1789, fine, let's see here, till 1789, that is when the event of your storming of Bastille happened in France. Fine. In 1789, storming of Bastille happened. This off will come up automatically. Nothing to worry. Fine. Okay. So it's a magical board. Okay. So in 1789, the storming of Bastille happened. Before that, there was a rule of monarchy. Right? Absolutist institutions were there. Let me put it like this only. Absolutist institutions were there. See? Off is there now, institutions is just disappeared, so nothing to worry. But yes, institution will come up on its own. Fine. Okay. So yes, fine. Till 1789, 1789 monarchy was there. After that we saw, like in 1791, let me write short only. So constitutional monarchy, like France became constitutional monarchy. uh, Monarch or the King Louis the 16th, he accepted the constitution being made by the National Assembly. Fine. In that tennis court. Fine. After that we saw, like in 1793, it became republic. Okay, it's showing a lot of its magic today. Okay, see, institutions is there now. Let me complete this word. Okay, fine. So in 1793, republic, it became republic. Then what happened? Like after the reign of terror of, or after the rule of Maximilian Robespierre, that is the time when there was no monarchy at all. After that, the rule of directory came up, like after 1794 onwards. Fine, directory, it came into existence, isn't it? Isn't it? Directory, like it was a group of people, at least five people were there from different political parties, from different parties, which were working in France that time. Fine, and they used to be the executive during this time period. Fine, till 1799. In 1799, what happened? Napoleon Bonaparte, he was a military personnel, he was a brigadier, like he was into onto very different army positions, designations basically. Yes, in 1799 he couped, like he couped, and he overthrew this directory, and he himself became the first consulate. Fine. After that, in 1804, now here comes the story. Like in 1804, he crowned himself what? As a king of France. He became the emperor of France. Fine. Initially, people of France, they did not understand what happened to them actually. Why so? Because no doubt the administration or the rule of Napoleon was very good and efficient and effective also. Like he modernized army, he made the bureaucracy efficient, he abolished serfdom and feudal system, birth privileges, right? So back actually he come up with a civil code which was named as like the Civil Code of 1804, which was so much liked by everyone that everyone in Europe, they wanted to have this code. Rather, like in a way, like in 1807, the name of the code, it even got changed to Napoleonic Code of 1807. Fine. And everyone in Europe, they wanted to have this code in their respective kingdoms or in their respective countries or in their respective regions. Fine. And what happened then, like Napoleon was being welcomed. Yes, he was being welcomed by the other parts of Europe, means other people of Europe. They were fighting against their monarchy system, their absolutist people, and they wanted Napoleon to come into their country, and they the means the Napoleon would free them from the monarchy system and establish this code. They really wanted that, right? But as people, I would say, would naive in a little sense, as basically they did not understand about politics part and all. Fine. And this is what actually will lead to the destruction of the rule of Napoleon only. His over ambitious nature of winning the world or taking control of entire Europe actually will lead into its doom, right? So let's see. Yes, his ambition was to conquer the whole of Europe. Yes, we say na excess of anything is bad, and that will only make the rule of Napoleon doomed in 1815. Yes, he started dispossessing dynasties and creating kingdoms. Very good, very nice, right? Obviously, and people means Europeans, they themselves were inviting him to come and fight with our monarchy system. Fine, but in actual sense, what was happening when Napoleon used to go there, he started establishing his own political rule, right? He used to give throne of that particular European region to one of his family members or any of his known person. Fine, who basically used to blow his trumpet. Fine, so he used to give position to those people. Fine, so he started dispossessing dynasties. Okay, fine, and creating kingdoms where he placed members of his family. So in a way we can say, the in French Revolution, People fought so much, they struggled a lot, they made constitution, they threw monarchy away, and they tried to make France democratic and republic. But at the end, in a way, means out of, like, there was no proper rule of any one person, or there was no proper administration part as such. So we could see here that in a way, monarchy, not monarchy exactly, dictatorship had started ruling France now. Fine. In the administrative field, he had incorporated revolutionary principles, no doubt. His administration was one of the good ones only, in order to make the whole system more rational and efficient, no doubt. And that's why we will say, like, in the after him, when the new conservatism will come, like, actually conservatism regime or conservatism rule will become new because of these revolutionary principles only. Fine. So yes, this is about him. Yes, so what he did actually, what he did, firstly, he abolished birth privileges. Second, he established equality before law. Fine. And he secured right to property. Again, let me tell you, there was no political equality. Equality before law was there, but not political equality. That is to say, women, they were still not given suffrage part. Fine. Okay. Then Dutch Republic, Switzerland, Italy and Germany. Like, in these areas, what he did, he simplified administrative divisions. Fine. Then he abolished the feudal system, freed peasants from serfdom and manorial dues. Right? Feudal system and serfdom, these are the terminologies you had already studied in your 9th class. So it's let me know about this in the comment section, like, what do you mean by feudal system and serfdom? Fine. Okay. In towns, he removed guild restrictions. Now, what are guild basically? Right? So what are guild? What is a guild? Guild is basically group of people, like, who belong to trading communities. Fine. So initially, these traders, they were not allowed to make groups or associations, but he removed that. Right? Guild are kind of, you can say, trade associations. Fine. So he removed that. That is to say, now the trading people and all business people, they can make their guilds now. Fine. So it was removed. So it really helped in increasing the business of people and the economy of the nation or the country. Fine. He improved transport and communication system, which is again a kind of lifeline for business communities. Fine. So it was again very good. So I told you, na, in socially also he did very good work, economically also he did very good work, but yes, not from the point of view of political suffrage or political equality. Right? This we can say from the point that women were not given equal status as men, rather they were being their status was decreased to minor only. Right? And they became under the like, they became they need to be controlled by their fathers or husbands only. Fine. They need to go under the control or the guardianship of husbands and their fathers, means anyone. Right? So yes, businessmen and small scale producers, for them, he, like, they understood that now, what these businessmen and small scale producers, they understood that uniform laws and standardized weights and a common national currencies are very much important to facilitate trade, and these are the things were given by Napoleon. So obviously Napoleon got the praise by this businessmen and small scale producers also. Fine. Peasants, artisans, workers, and new businessmen, they even enjoyed new freedom. Fine. They like this new economical changes. Fine. So all these changes were introduced by whom? Napoleon Bonaparte, through his civil code of 1804. And yes, let me tell you again, short question, direct question. What do you mean by Napoleon code of 1807 or 1804, or what do you mean by civil code of 1804? Fine. Direct question. Fine. These are the points that you have to write. Short 5 marks are there. Okay. Okay. So yes. But yes, as I told you, people initially, they did not understand the actual intentions or ambitions of Napoleon. Fine. So they themselves called Napoleon, right? They considered him as the harbinger of change and liberty and equality, right? They themselves called them ki, yes, please come, and what can you do, help us and free us from our monarchy system. Fine. So all these things like Brussels or your Mainz in Germany, right? Milan, Italy, or Warsaw in Poland. So you can see to what extent Napoleon had extended the territorial extension of France, right? Or his rule, we can say, right? So he extended his rule to such a great extent. Fine. So, but later on, people understood that there is no political freedom, because the choice of his monarch or his ruler would start ruling their respective places. Fine. So people, they did not like that. There is a painting of that also. Let me show you. Like, this is a painting, this is a kind of sarcastic reference to the claim of the French as being liberators who opposed monarchy in the territories that they entered. Like, in whichever in whichever territory they used to enter, they used to say like, we are against monarchy, and we have very good system of liberation, and we have very good ideas of equality and liberty. Take that from us. See these, or these red, blue, white colored people, like colored dresses of people they are wearing, these are French people. Fine. And see, they are having this pole. It's a kind of sarcastic comment, basically. Fine. They, in this placard, what is being written, right? Like, it is being written actually, take the freedom and equality from us, the model of humanity. Fine. Take this from us, right? And on the contrary, what will you be doing? You will be giving us your political freedom, right? And see, you can see there, like the peasants, they are being threatened here, the women are being molested, right? So all these things were happening in territories in which Napoleon armies, they used to go. Fine. So this is the thing. Now you can understand what kind of rule Napoleon was having, like, or making in Europe. Fine. So yes, and also in the acquired territories, Napoleon, what he used to do, he used to increase taxes, he used to put censorship, like that is to curtail the freedom of press. Fine. Freedom of press in, like in printing of books, paintings and all. Fine. And even there was forced conscription into the French armies. Fine. That is to say, he used to forcefully asked people of different territories even to join the French army because of the modernization of army and all, and he forced them to be a part of his ambition of conquering Europe. Fine. So that was a kind of scenario, and that was like that's what, like, the excess of his ambitious nature made him, like, basically his rule was doomed because of that. Okay. So isn't it a very good example that excess of anything is bad? even even for the king. Yeah, right. Okay. So yes, the same things that I have just told you, that many people saw Napoleon as the liberator who would bring freedom for the people. But soon the Napoleonic armies came to be viewed everywhere as an invading force. Invading of what? Invasion of their political freedom, right? Thus other nations joined hands. Everyone means other nations or other monarchs, and even people, like, they joined hands and defeated Napoleon in the Battle of Waterloo in 1815. Fine. Many of his measures that carried the revolutionary ideas of liberty and modern laws to other parts of Europe had an impact on people long after Napoleon had left. Why so? Because obviously, because of this, because of these measures only, or because of the revolutionary principles of Napoleon only, a new conservatism regime came into existence after his fall in the Battle of Waterloo in 1815. Let me tell you, it was not easy for the monarchs to defeat him. right? Why so? Because initially it was being tried in 1830 in the battle of Lipschitz to to defeat him, right? To make him go, right. And but yes, no doubt, Austria and Prussia, yes, Austria and Prussia, they got success, they were successful in their attempt. But also, but is still, like, after exiling him to one of the islands of like Elba, right, Albana, right, still he managed to return back in 1814 itself, right. And again there were some wars and all, but lastly in the Battle of Waterloo in Belgium, he was being circumscribed from all around by different monarchs, and finally there was a defeat of Napoleon, right. And finally he was being exiled to a long lost island of somewhere, right, from where he could never return. Fine. So yes, this is how the fall of Napoleon took place. Fine. So yes, and here we saw in what manner these people, like the French people or French revolutionaries, they created the idea of commonness, and so the idea of nation together, right. Also we studied about how did Napoleon came to power and what all measures actually lead his fall to. Fine. Okay, let's look at one of this almanac. Like almanac, it's a kind of calendar only. Fine, it's a kind of like German almanac, fine, and it was made on the ideas of French storming of Bastille, fine, event, fine. Okay, so yes, again you can have a question on this. So yes, you need to read the captions also of the pictures which are given there in your NCERT books very nicely. Fine. Okay. So yes, now very good part. That's the question part. Let's see who all can answer. Write your answers in the comment section. Fine. A large number of people were hostile to the Napoleonic Code because why they were hostile towards that? Because it was not suitable for all, because it destroyed the special privileges of the rulers, because the administrative changes did not go hand in hand with political freedom, none of the above. So yes, yes, obviously the administrative changes, social and economical changes were there, but not the political freedom part, right? So that's why people, they turned hostile towards Napoleonic code or the changes being introduced by Napoleon. Fine, moving to the next one. Which one of the following types of government was functioning in France before the revolution? It must be revolution of 1789. So what kind of administrative system was there? So yes, it was monarchy, isn't it? Yes. Okay, I know you people know about this. Okay, so with this, we completed the two topics. That is, first, we learned about the painting of Frederick Sorrow. Next, we understood how the French revolutionaries, they created the idea of commonness, and they developed the idea of nation. Fine. Moving further, we learned about the coming up of Napoleon as a ruler, as an emperor of France, and later on, we even understood, we got to know about his fall as well. Fine. Okay, so again it's time for a small water break. Let me also take a sip of water, you also take it, and I'm just coming in a moment. Okay. So yes, students, the water break is over now. Okay, so yes, now we are coming, like we are moving towards the next topic, that is the various classes that existed in Europe. But before that, let's understand what kind of political system was there in Europe. I know there was monarchy, absolutist institutions, but in the form of the empires and kingdoms. This will give us a brief idea about how could nationalism emerged there, right, out of so much diversities that existed in Europe that time. Fine. So initially I told you that with the example of one of the big empires of Europe, that is your Habsburg Empire. Fine. We will understand what all kinds of different diversities existed in Europe that time. Fine. And let me tell you that Europe is altogether a different, like it was altogether a different continent from West then in comparison to what it was in Central and Eastern Europe. Fine. Because of like industrialization happening in western part of Europe before then it could happen in Eastern or Central Europe, the development part was quicker in the Western Europe than in the Eastern or Central front. Fine. And because of that, the changes that happened or the making of nation states that happened in Europe, it also get affected. Fine. So Habsburg Empire, we can say like it was basically, let me show you this part, like as you can see this Austro-Hungarian Empire, this pink part. Fine. And the empire means the regions around it. Fine. It covers your Habsburg Empire that time. Fine. Let me give you a brief idea of that. Yes. So in a very like very sweet mnemonics, let me tell you this, like it was basically used to consisted of Hungarian, right? Hungary Empire, right? And in that also half of the population, half population used to speak what? The dialect of Magyar. Fine. In this we will be understanding, like with this example of Habsburg, we are trying to understand like what all diversities existed there. Fine. Again recall, in nationalism we need to have some commonness. Fine. Okay. So yes, and the rest half population, it used to speak the other regional dialects. Fine. Other regional dialects. Then there was a region called Galicia, right, where Polish language was used. Fine, that was the language there. With A, we see like it consisted of alpine regions. Fine, in today's time, alpine regions is consisted of your Switzerland, Germany, Monaco, and all, right? And also it had like Austria. Fine, okay. And let me give you one more mnemonics to understand Habsburg Empire. That is your, right, Subat, like it's a kind of your Gujarati word Subat, that is to say good thing, right, good word. Okay, so yes, with Su there was a region of Sudetenland. Fine. With B there was a region of Bohemia. Yes. With A it was your Austria, and T it was your Tyrol. And all these places were having your like they were German speaking regions. Fine. One more mnemonic is there to understand the extent of your Habsburg Empire, that is LOV, love. Fine. With LO it is Lombardy. With VE it's your Venetia. Fine. And these were your Italian speaking regions. Fine. So you can see there are so many different regions are there, so many different languages and dialects are there. Fine. In terms of peasants living there, let me tell you, like for example, in north, south, east, in west it was not so. Fine. Because Austrian Hungarian Empire or your Habsburg Empire, it was totally extended towards your Central and Eastern Europe part. Fine. So in northern part we can see like there were Bohemians and Slovaks. Fine. So Pigeons we are talking about. So Bohemians were there and Slovaks were there. In south we have Slovenes. Fine. And we have Croats, right? Slovenes were in Carniola, and here we have your Croats. Because of these Croats people, later on this developed into Croatia. Fine. In eastern we have, in eastern front there were Romans or Romans. It was like on east of Transylvania. So the question here comes up like that: when Europe was divided into so many different different dialects or regionalities, and different ethnicities and cultures and traditions and all, then how come it became like into this concept? Like, how come various different nation states they came into existence? Fine, because see, in France, no doubt the idea of nation state came up, right? But there, the entire means all the people they belong to common culture, common tradition, and they were even struggling through the common thing together. But here the only commonness that these people share, that they all were under one sovereign control, that is, they all were under the Habsburg Empire. Fine, then what happened actually? So yes, that we will see like now further. Fine, so this is like, you can see the with this we understood that Europe was not so that we see today as this, right, in the past. Fine, and there were various different classes existed that time. For example, aristocrats were there. Fine, socially and politically we find them a dominant class in Europe. Fine, they were dominant in class, like in socially and political influence, but numerically they were smaller in group, like they were not so much in numbers, but yes, influence wise they were good, like they were dominating class. They were united by a common way of life. They all have a common way of life, whether they were living in any part of Europe, but they used to share a common way of life. Fine, that cut across regional divisions. Fine, they used to have similar kind of attires, or having similar kind of activities, right? But yes, so this was the way they used to be together in themselves. They owned estates, they had property, like they were the propertied men actually. So in the countryside they owned properties. Fine, they spoke French. French is like one of the civilized languages. Today also it is being carried forward by various elite class people. So yes, it means these also people like used to speak French, and it was used for various diplomatic purposes in high class societies. Their families were often connected by the ties of marriage. You can take this example from the marriage of French king of Bourbon dynasty, King Louis the 16th, with Austrian princess Marie Antoinette. The ties of marriage, with that they got connected with each other. Fine, so that was the lifestyle these people were having, aristocrats. Fine, the other classes that we find there, peasantry, farmers and all were there, serfs or slaves were there. I told you already, the Europe was different in western front and in central and eastern front. Fine, okay, so the majority of the population was made up of the peasantry. Fine, okay, they were agricultural laborers of low social status, mostly the peasants. Like, they were not owning the lands. Generally they were the generally the upper middle class people, or these royal people or aristocrats, they used to own land. But yes, these people, they used to work there as laborers or maybe as serfs. Fine, to the west, on the west part, the lands were farmed by tenants and small owners. Fine, there were some small owners also there. Fine, but not in the eastern and central front. Like, there the estates, they were being cultivated by serfs. Fine, so we can understand that a kind of economic situation was also different in western and eastern Europe part. Fine, moving further, we see that in western and parts of central Europe, the growth of industrial production, yes, industrialization played a very important role in the growth and development of the European continent, and rather I should say the entire world itself. Fine, so the growth of industrial production and trade meant the growth of towns and the emergence of commercial classes. Obviously, with the emergence, or with the emergence of, we can say, or the people, they started having a little prosperity, right? They started having some money, so they got themselves educated, their social status increased. Fine. So that happened there also, like the towns, the growth of towns happened, the commercial classes, they emerged, whose existence was based on the production for the market. Fine. Industrialization, it happened like mostly in the England part, in the second half of the 18th century. Fine. But in France and in the German states, it occurred only during the 19th century, because that's why will see that England will develop quicker and before the any other European states. Fine. Okay, in its wake, new social groups came into being. In its wake means what? In the wake of industrialization, new other classes they also came up. Like earlier there were aristocrats, peasants and serfs. Fine. In France also we saw there was different kind of estates were existing. Fine. But after that, as they were sharing the common struggle together, so there was a kind of commonness they found among themselves, and that culminated them into a nation state. Fine. Here also, after this industrialization, new classes they come up, like for example working class people. Fine. They worked in factories and received less wages, because there were no labor laws as such at that time. They used to work in harsh conditions, means long working hours were there, dungy cells were there. Fine. Suffocation, and the places where they used to live, they were also like very filthy ones and all. Fine. So not very good, in very good conditions they used to work, right? But yes, working class people, they were coming up due to the industrialization part. Middle class, they composed of industrialists, businessmen, professionals like doctors, lawyers and other people. Like middle class, like these are the people who had started earning some money, and they increased their strata in the society as well. Fine. Then upper class people, these were the wealthiest member of the society, and they even had great political power. Fine. It was actually because of the emergence of this middle class, these people, these educated ones, this liberal middle class people, the idea of national unity following the abolition of aristocratic privileges gained popularity. Fine. Actually, because of the emergence of this middle class people, or these middle class or educated people, the philosophy of liberalism came up. In the initial years of 19th century, it was because of the idea of liberalism, the idea of nationalism gained importance in Europe. Fine. So these were the various classes that existed in Europe that time. Fine. With this, we now come to the part like what we mean by liberal nationalism. Right. In the previous topic only, I let you know that because of the middle class people, this concept of liberalism, it came into existence. Fine. Because these people, they are now educated, they started questioning about the birth privileges, about the feudal system, about the serfdom, right? They started gaining knowledge about the equality, liberty, fraternity aspects. Fine. About the democracy, about the separation of powers and all, about the social contract. So yes, obviously if you gain knowledge, if you are aware about things, then only you can question, isn't it? So these people, they started coming up with all these ideas, and that led to the formation of the feeling, or the emergence of the feeling of nationalism. Fine. So let's understand this concept of liberal nationalism now. Fine. So liberalism, it basically derived from the Latin word of liber, which means free. Free, right? That is to say basically freedom, not it's a kind of sale or something going on. Fine. Okay, yes, it's not like that the industrialization was there, so they come up with the thing of how to sell out their products or something. Okay, jokes apart. Moving further. So yeah, liberalism basically, like these working class people, They were not free. They were even getting exploited by the upper class people and these aristocrats and all. Fine. So also liberal people, they started gaining knowledge and they were getting aware about their rights and everything. Fine. Also, like the other parts of the world, like America and all, they had their constitution also. They got to so these liberal people, out of their education part, they got to know about these new concepts which were being prevalent or which were spreading at that time around the world. So they started questioning all that. So liberalism, if we will see, for middle class people, it stood for what? It stood for freedom for the individual. First thing, it stood for equality before law. Fine. So basically, for middle class people, it means freedom must be there and equality must be there. Politically, it means government should be there by consent, that is to say democratic government should be there, and constitution should be there. So that is to say constitutionalism must be followed by the government. Fine. Government should not function whimsically or on its own or in an absolute way, but with the consent of the constitution and with the consent of the people. Fine. Moving further, then obviously with the French Revolution, French Revolution gave the idea of liberalism as end of autocracy and privileges, constitution and parliament. Fine. So these were the ideas in liberalism being added by what? Your French Revolution part. Then in 19th century, new thing came up, that is the inviolability of private property. That is to say, no one can enter or intrude into someone's private property. It should not be like that property must be owned by could be owned by any aristocrat or any high class people or something. No, if anybody is owning a property and that is a private property, it should be inviolable. That is why no one should violate the rights of the property. Fine. So that was the idea of liberalism. Let me tell you here, you can get direct question here. Write a short note on liberal nationalism part. So here you will be writing all this stuff, writing the meaning of liberalism with 4 different aspects: about middle class people, about political front, then about the French Revolution, and in 19th century. Fine. So this is what we mean by liberal nationalism. Fine. Moving further, liberal nationalism was further divided into, or there are 2 aspects of this, that is your political liberalism and economic liberalism part. Fine. So we know, like, since French Revolution only, equality before law, it started being granting to the people or to the masses, public also, right? But not universal suffrage, right? So people understood that equality before law, it did not necessarily stand for universal suffrage. Suffrage, that means your right to vote. Fine. Maybe you are equal before the law, like you have equality before law, but you may not have right to vote. That is to say, you cannot participate in the election activities. Fine. So we have seen in the French society that, fine, even in French society we saw that throughout the 19th and early 20th centuries, women and non-propertied men, they organized movements demanding equal political rights. And yes, we know now that in 1946, finally the women of France, they got the right to vote. Fine. See, so such a strong struggle they had to do to achieve this political liberalism, or we can say political equality. Fine. Okay. Earlier, obviously, this suffrage was only being given to active citizens and not to passive citizens. Fine. So, and who were the active citizens? Only men above 25 years of age who pay taxes and who own properties. Only these were allowed to vote. Fine. And not the all other people. Fine. So there was no political liberalism, we can say. Fine. And Europe was struggling with that thing, that not having political liberalism for a long period of time. Fine. So that was there. Fine. Okay. Yes. So that was all about this, about your political liberalism part. Moving further towards the economic liberalism part. Fine. In economic sphere, what we saw that liberalism, it stood for middle classes in two aspects. First is the freedom of market. Other one is the abolition of state imposed restrictions on the movement of goods and capital. Fine. So middle class people, they saw economic liberalism in the form of freedom and in the form of abolishing these state imposed restrictions. Fine. So actually, in the 19th century, this was a strong demand of the emerging middle class people, like all these things, that is the freedom of markets and the abolition of state imposed restrictions. Fine. On the imposition, on the movement of goods and capital, what kind of restrictions were there? That is the payment of taxes. We will see, like we will see an example with this. During the reign of Napoleon, he did, obviously he did wonderful job in social and economic front, isn't it? Right. One of the job that he did in his administration was he created a confederation or union of 39 states, German 39 states, right? Yes. Fine. Each of these, means these states, they possessed its own currency, means these 39 states of that particular region, they had their own respective currencies, their own respective units and units of weights and measures, which used to create a lot of hindrance in the movement of goods and capital from one place to another. So that was a kind of restriction, you can say. Obviously these states were there and these were being ruled by the respective monarchs and everything, but when Napoleon took control over these states, he united them. He made their confederation of 39 states, and then in those particular states, all these currencies, units, weights, measures and all, they were given some uniformity. Fine. Yes, for example, let's understand with this with an example. For example, if a trader is there and he wanted to move from Hamburg to Nuremberg, those two places are there in German, right? In Germany, right? And he needs to move from one place to another. Fine. Okay. He had to pass through 11 custom barriers. That is to say, if he is moving from here to there, he has to pass 11 custom barriers. Getting and pay custom duties at each of these barriers or at 5%. Fine, about 5%. Now, a huge amount, isn't it? Duties were often levied. Duties or taxes, you can say, they were being levied according to the weight or measurement of the goods. Fine, on the weight and measurement of the respective goods being carried by the trader from one place to another in that confederation of 39 states. Fine. As each region had its own system of weights and measures, this involved time consuming calculation, right? There it means it takes a lot of time. Fine. Also, it causes losses also. Okay. For example, a cloth, right? A cloth is being taken was being taken by the trader from one place to another. Fine. So let's see, the unit of measurement is L, and 1 L is having different measurement at different places. For example, in Frankfurt, it is 54.7 centimeter. In Mainz, it is 55.1 centimeter. In Nuremberg, it is 65.6 centimeter. And Freiburg, it's 53.5 centimeter. So accordingly, the calculation of custom duties will be done at each and every place. So it is going to be time consuming. It is going to cost a lot. And at the end, Nuremberg, you can imagine the cost of that particular cloth. Fine. Obviously, if the price if the cost or the price of the product is very high, there are less chances that it will be taken by the masses, isn't it? And we know that for sure that the western front or the western part of Europe was more developed or more industrialized than the eastern and central part. So accordingly, people were living off that strata only, isn't it? So that was the thing. Fine. So because of all these things, what happened? He tried to unify the system, he tried to bring some uniformity there. Fine. Such conditions were viewed as obstacles to economic exchange and growth by new commercial classes who argued for the creation of a unified economic territory. They wanted to have some unification or some uniform system, basically some uniformity to be there, allowing the unhindered, means unobstacled, or means there should be no restriction in movement of goods or people and capital. Fine. So what happened? These new commercial classes, they argued for what? Unified economic territory. Fine. And movement of, like, unhindered movement of goods, people and capital from one place to another. By these were the demands by new commercial classes. Fine. Okay, and with this, there was a new concept, there emerged a new concept of zollverein in 1834, which was a kind of customs union. Fine. Okay, no doubt. Napoleon made what? Napoleon had unified that 39 states, and accordingly he made the system uniform. Fine. Then later on the initiative of Prussia, है ना, and many German states, this custom union, or we can say zollverein, came into existence. Fine. What he did means what it did, rather, right? So it abolished tariff barriers, one thing. It reduced the number of currencies from 30 to 2. Wow, amazing, isn't it? It's the similar thing, like for example, as we go from our country to we can say Europe. Fine, there euro is the currency and here we have rupees. So obviously we need to go through that money exchange thing, isn't it? Foreign exchange thing. Fine. And this cost a little, actually, students. Fine. And this causes a little loss also to the person. Fine. But reducing the number of currencies from over 30 to 2, it's an amazing revolution at that time. Yes. Creation of network of railways. Railway system was improved, you can say, and which helped in the mobility of people and harnessing economic interest to national unification part, right? So a wave of economic nationalism strengthened the wider nationalist sentiments growing at that time. Fine. Because of this economic liberalism or economic nationalism, it finally led to the growth of nationalist sentiments at that time. Fine. So because of this, we say that liberalism played an important part in the emergence of nationalist feelings or nationalist sentiments amongst people of Europe that time. Fine. Is this clear to all? So yes, there is a direct question about zollverein. What do you mean by zollverein, right? What kind of problem was being faced by the traders or businessmen at that time related to the movement of goods and capital from one place to another? So you can give this example of Hamburg to Nuremberg. Fine. Also, there is a direct question related to, like, what are the lacuna of political liberalism. So you can write there about firstly means political liberalism was never achieved in Europe during the 19th century, or especially during, yes, especially in the 19th century part, right? Even in France also, there was no political freedom as such during the rule of Napoleon. Even what happened, the women, they were being decreased to the status of being a minor only. Fine. So yes, for political liberalism part, you can write about all these things, about active citizens and passive citizens, then economic liberalism part, and the meaning of liberalism. So yes, again, it's an important question from the point of view of your board exam as well. Fine. So yes, so with this, we have completed this. Very good. I'm so happy about it. Let's do this question first. For the middle class of Europe, the most important feature of liberalism was middle class people. Abolition of conservatism, right to be liberal and educated, individual freedom and equality before law, representative government. Okay. So yes, it was your individual freedom and equality before law, right? Okay, so moving further towards now new conservatism. Fine. Now again, see, it's a kind of we can say opposites together, isn't it? Fine. How come? Like, why am I saying so? It's new, but it's conservative. How can conservative or conservatism be new? Because conservatism means what? That means preferring, that means to prefer old established institutions, old established institutions like your old rituals, traditions, knowledge, administrative systems. Fine. Conservative people, like these are like they prefer gradual change or very slow change, or rather no change, I should say. Fine. They believe, they prefer old established institutions, they believe in old customs, traditions, right, and the like. Fine. Say they, so they, conservative people are like this. Fine. And here with conservative we basically mean by monarchy system, monarchs or monarchy or royal standards actually. Fine. So recall in battle of Waterloo, that is in 1815, Napoleon rule was doomed. Fine. He was being exiled to the long lost island of St Helena, from where he could never return, right? He took his last breath also there. Fine. So now what happened to the administrative system? So yes, monarchy, it returned. Fine. And it returned with the Treaty of Vienna of 1815. But why this conservative rule, which came back again after the end of the reign of Napoleon? What was new there? So let me tell you. Yes, the revolutionary principles that Napoleon introduced, they were actually liked by people. Fine. So even after the defeat of Napoleon and the monarchs, they taking back their control, but now they understood what, that now it's not possible to return to the pre-revolutionary days. Fine. So they accepted a few changes being made by Napoleon during his rule. Fine. What were those? And actually those rules means they accepted only those changes which would be made them more strong. Fine. And which would help them to rule nicely. Fine. Firstly, they accepted the concept of modern army. They accepted the abolition of serfdom and feudal system. Fine. They accepted dynamic economy, that is like making of your confederation of 39 states and all. Fine. That is like your making uniform system of units and measures, bringing centralized administrative system, making uniform laws and everything. Fine. And also the efficient bureaucracy, right? So that's why we say that this regime as new conservatism. With no doubt conservatives, they returned back to their throne. Fine. But with some newness, and that newness was already being tasted by the people of Europe, by the great ruler or great emperor Napoleon Bonaparte. Fine. So that's why we say that it is a new conservatism of 1815. You might get the question like why it is called, why is it called as new conservatism? Define new conservatism. So you will be writing all this. Fine. A political, basically conservatism, what it is like, so it is a political philosophy. Yeah, right, it is a political philosophy. That means we are talking about the administration part. Fine. That stressed the importance of traditions, established institutions and customs. Fine. Preferred gradual development to quicker change. Fine. They wanted what? Change should be there, but gradual change must be there, not quick one. Fine. Established institutions and customs should be given importance to, right? And traditions and all must be adhered by the people. Fine. Following the defeat of Napoleon in 1815, European governments were driven by the spirit of conservatism. Fine. Conservatives believed in the establishment of traditional, like the previous one, the institutions who used to be there in pre-revolutionary days or before their rule. right, before the rule of Napoleon and all. Fine. So institutions of state and society, and they should be preserved. Like what should be preserved? Monarchy should be preserved, church, property, right, property being owned by them should be preserved, social hierarchies, family should be preserved. Fine. So old traditions, old customs, they should be preserved. That was the philosophy of conservatives. Fine. And this is what we mean by conservatism. Fine. Okay. Okay, yes, this is like after the battle of Lipschitz, right? A little ago I mentioned you about that. It was not easy for monarchs to just uh, to to make Napoleon go away like this. Like it was not easy for them. So initially, like in 1813, there was Battle of Lipschitz being fought between your Prussia, Austria, and France. No doubt he defeated, means Napoleon was defeated in that battle, right? He lost so many territories, and this picture is showing that only. Like he is losing various. He is losing various territories here, and he was being sent in an exile only to the island of Alba, right, Albana, right. But later on, what happened? He managed to return, and then again he fought, and again there was a battle of Lydney, and then finally there was battle of Waterloo, in which he got defeated. Fine. So yes, this is about this picture. Okay, moving further. So yes, okay, so yes, these now the obviously the changes, changes were being accepted by the conservatives. Just now I told you, modern army, abolition of feudalism and serfdom, dynamic economy and efficient bureaucracy. Fine. Modernization and strengthen traditional, like only those things, only those revolutionary principles were being accepted by the monarchs, which could modernize and strengthen their traditional institutions, right, and nothing else. Fine. It could make state power more effective and strong. Only those things were accepted which could make them stronger in their rule and power. It could strengthen the autocratic monarchies of Europe. Fine. Yes. Okay. So now let's understand about this Treaty of Vienna of 1815. Okay, so in 1815, representatives of the European powers, who all were there, we call them in short Prupp countries, that is your Prussia, Russia, Britain and Austria. They met at a Vienna. Vienna is like capital of your Austria, to draw up a settlement for Europe. Means Napoleon, he was defeated. So the main important parties who all were there in the Battle of Waterloo, we can learn them with a small mnemonic of brand. B for your Britain, R for your Russia and Prussia, A for your Austria, N for your Napoleon Bonaparte, D, the important person who would take over this meeting is the Austrian Chancellor of with name Duke Metternich. Austrian Chancellor, your Duke Metternich. Fine. So these were the important parties to the Treaty of Vienna. Fine. Now you know where it happened. In Vienna only it happened. Okay, and it happened after the defeat of Napoleon, to settle the terms and conditions, like now what kind of Europe they would be having, right? Because Napoleon, what he did, he acquired, he territorially he expanded France to a large extent. Now they wanted to shrink that up again. Fine. Okay. So yes, they wanted to undo or undoing most of the changes that had come about in Europe during the Napoleonic Wars. What all wars that he did, that he fought with the various monarchs. Okay, so actually what happened? Firstly, again you can learn this with the mnemonic of, let me show you, with the mnemonic of burnt. Fine. Learning Treaty of Vienna is very, very simple. You can learn that with two mnemonics of brand, then burnt. I'm telling you, this will tell you the various terms or the objects of the Treaty of Vienna, like whatever all are mentioned there. Fine. And then last one is about the censorship part. Fine, and this will cover your Treaty of Vienna, and there is a direct question you can get in your exam related to, like, write a short note on Treaty of Vienna. Fine, so this is the thing. For example, like, firstly with B, we know that Bourbon dynasty, it was restored in France. Fine, so Bourbon dynasty with King Louis the 18th. Fine, Louis the 18th, it was restored to power, first thing. Fine, moving further, we can see that, okay, yes, there was unchanged, means untouched. All these German confederation of 39 states, they remained untouched. Why so? Because they were giving profit to the region, so obviously they were untouched. So yes, you can write here like unchanged German confederation. I'm writing this only. Fine. Then R is for your restoring monarchy in other places also. All over Europe, monarchy, it returned to its power. Fine. N is like for new territories set up. I'll tell you in detail this thing. New territories set up around France, because what happens whenever France sneezes, the entire Europe catches cold. So no particular event will start affecting the outside Europe places. So they started means they established new territories around around France. Fine, and yes, finally we will see lost territories. Who lost territories? All the territories, extra territories being acquired by Napoleon during his rule, they were again returned back to their respective monarchies, and in this way, yes, monarchy was restored in Europe. Fine, so now let's see. Okay, France lost the territories, last part T. Fine, it lost the territories it had annexed under Napoleon. Fine, okay, new territories set up, series of states, they were set up. Fine, here we have new territories, lost territories. Okay, now, okay, how the new territories they were being set up. So as we know, like, this is France, for example. So here we have the Kingdom of Netherlands, which includes Belgium. So yes, Netherlands and Belgium in northern part, right, they were given the territory. Fine, set up in the north, and Genoa was added to Piedmont in the south. In south, Genoa was added in a way. Fine, okay, moving further, Prussia was given important new territories on its western fronts. Prussia was one of the party. Fine, so Prussia was given what? A part of Saxony, that's there in here somewhere in the eastern part, right? Prussia was given that, and also uh, the some of the territories on its western front. Fine, that is to say, okay, let me see, let me tell you this area, like, in a way somewhere here Prussia was given part. Fine, so they are trying to what? Curb the territorial expansion of France, and also to make sure that no other event in future will again affect the entire Europe part. Fine, so yes, this happened. Moving further, Prussia is done. Austria, it was given the control of northern Italy. Italy is somewhere here, so it was given part of this, that is the south of France. Getting? So it was given that part. Russia was given a part of Poland, so again this side. So in a way, a kind of like series are being set up, and here to already Britain and all are there, and there is sea. Fine. So this happened. Prussia was given important new territories on its western fronts. Prussia was even given a part of Saxony. Austria was given the control of northern Italy, and Russia was given a part of Poland. Fine, this happened, and yes, German Confederation, they remain untouched. Fine, main intention was to restore the monarchies that had been overthrown by Napoleon and create a new conservative order in Europe. Fine, so now you can again turn here. Bourbon dynasty came in, like again restored in France, and Louis XVIII was given throne there. Now unchanged German Confederation. Restoring monarchies was the main object. Fine. And establishing the new conservative order. Fine. And how that new conservative order was there? With that mnemonic of made, you can recall. Fine. Then new territories set up. All the new territories. North we have Belgium, Netherlands. South we have Northern Italy. Part was given to Austria. Then we have Genoa. That was in the south part, in the Piedmont south part. Eastern Front, some parts of Poland was given to Russia. Prussia was even given some front western part territories, and also it was being given Saxony as well. So right, in this way new territory set up, and France obviously he lost all the territories that were acquired during the rule of Napoleon. Fine, so that was the thing. Okay, so this all happened. And one important thing of Treaty of Vienna, like after that new conservative order came into existence, was the censorship. Fine, they imposed censorship. Now these people, they wanted that everything which is getting publicized, or which was reaching to the public, they should reach after their observance only, or after their surveillance. Fine. So conservative regimes they set up in 1815 were autocratic, meaning one man's rule who has absolute power. Obviously, they were trying to restore, they were trying to regain their power and control. Fine. They did not tolerate criticism and dissent. They do not want such kind of people. They wanted people who could blow their trumpets. Fine. And punished the perpetrators. Perpetrators means the people who were going against them. Fine. Who were making plans against them. Who were in a way who were doing sedition against the country, right? Curb activities that question the legitimacy of autocratic governments. They wanted to curb such activities. They do not want to publicize anything which can lead to a spread of nationalist feelings or nationalist IF sentiments. Fine. Now how can then afterwards what will happen, that such nationalism feeling will spread still, but yes, they will get spread. Okay, so most of them imposed censorship laws to control what was said in newspapers, books, plays, dramas, and through music. Fine. So in a way, they tried to control, they tried to curb the activities of the people, because see, no doubt political administration got changed, but the people, they still had liberal nationalist people amongst themselves, isn't it? Those people who tasted freedom and equality as such. Fine. Who wanted monarchy or absolutist institutions to go away. Fine. No doubt, for a smaller period of time, that is to say 15 years, from 1815 to 1830, conservatives, they will be in power. Fine. And these liberal nationalist people, or the so-called revolutionaries who would come up, they will work in an illegal way and in a latent way, right? But activities would be going on, right? Yes, that is for sure. So yes, conservative regimes which were set up in 1815, obviously they were autocratic, and obviously they mean that no person should contradict them in any way, or go or dissent them in any way, or challenge their decisions. Fine. Memory of French Revolution nonetheless continued to inspire liberals. Fine. Yes, these people, they will work now. They will start working in a latent way. Fine, but they will be doing something or the other. One of the major issues taken up by the liberal nationalists who criticized the new conservative was freedom of the press, right? They were against this censorship part, right? And that affected them a lot, because now the people are liberal. They accepted this mindset or ideology of being liberal. Fine. So they did not want in any way that they should not that they were being curbed from expressing their viewpoints or their ideas or their opinions. Fine. So yes. Okay, so yes, the time period of 1815 to 1830, we will see the coming up of some revolutionaries. Yes, coming up of some revolutionaries. So we will see some kind of action here now, and also in the next topic, that is the revolutions from 1830 to 1848. But before that, now it's time to take a water break, right? Let me also have a sip of water. You can also have it. Fine. Okay. So yes, student. Okay, am I audible? Okay, am I visible? Okay, fine. Okay, so yes, we are done with our new conservative order. Fine, and also we are done with the Treaty of Vienna part. Fine, and now it's time to learn about some revolutionaries. Yes, even revolutionaries played an important part in developing the nationalist feelings amongst the people of Europe. Fine, there is an interesting uh, revolutionary also, that about whom we'll be learning. Fine. Okay, so yes, during the years of, means the years that follow 1815, that is from your 1815 till 1830 part, that was your conservative order being maintained or being was established in Europe that time. Fine. Due to the fear of repression, that is to say, being beaten up by this conservative people, or being put into jails or something, it drove many liberal nationalist underground. Fine. So people were there, right? But they were working in a way, they were working in a hidden way, and in a, like, they did their they used to do their activities against the conservative order, but in a latent style. Fine. Like for example, secret societies, they sprang up, fine, in many European states to train revolutionaries and spread their ideas. Fine. To be revolutionary at that time, it meant a kind of commitment to oppose monarchical forms. Fine. And to fight for liberty and freedom. Okay, most of these revolutionaries, they even saw the creation of nation states as a necessary part for this struggle for freedom. Right. So yes, here you can get a question like, how did revolutionaries play an important part in the emergence of the feeling of nationalism, or in spreading the ideas of nationalist feelings among the people of Europe? Fine. So yes, with these secret societies. Now let's learn about one of the important person, or one of the important revolutionaries, that was your Giuseppe Mazzini. Okay, with this I just recall that I have not told you that who said this statement, like that when France sneezes, the entire Europe catches cold. It was none other than the Austrian Chancellor, Duke Metternich, who said so during the Treaty of Vienna, like during the signing of Treaty of Vienna in 1815. Fine. Okay, and he even said one of the remarkable statement for this revolutionary also. Okay, so yes, he was born in Geneva in 1807. Fine. And he was Italian. Okay, he was an Italian revolutionary. Fine. And he tried his level best to unify Italy during his lifetime, but he could not succeed. He could not succeed, and yes, and rather he was one of the members, like he was one of the person who started with one of the earliest secret society of Italy, that is like your Carbonari. Fine, he was the member of there, like he was one of the founding members, you can say. Fine, he even made other two societies also. One was Young Italy in Marseille, right? Then one is Young Europe in Bern. Fine. So he made other two things, like other two secret societies also, or underground societies. And why so he made it beyond Italy, beyond Italian boundaries or territories? Actually, he tried to had a revolution in Liguria, and but because of that he was exiled in 1831 for attempting this revolution. part, right? So he was being exiled, he was being sent away from Italy, but yes, his love, his nationalism for Italy remained there in his heart. Fine. And because of that, he made other two underground societies beyond Italian boundaries or territories, that is Young Italy in Marseille and Young Europe in Bern. Fine. I hope you know the place that is Marseille. Let me know the country or the nation from where it belongs. Right? Okay, right there. Okay, now let's move further. The members of the groups, like these groups, we are talking about secret societies and all. The people or the members of these groups, they all were like-minded young men. Right? They all think the same way of liberalism, fine, nationalism from the people, they were from all over Europe, like Poland, France, Italy and German states. Fine, they belong to all these places. Yes, following his model of that is the model of secret societies, they were set up in different and various parts of all these places as well. Fine. Mazzini, actually he believed that God has intended nations to be the natural units of mankind. Fine. He believed so. And that's why he believed that Italy, it should not be a patchwork of small states and kingdoms. When we will be studying about the unification of Italy part, we'll get to know that Italy was in a way kind of bifurcated into various small kingdoms. Fine. It was a kind of patchwork of 7 small kingdoms. Fine. And so he did not want this for Italy. He had this vision of unification of Italy or making a nation out of Italy. Fine. So Italy could not be a patchwork of small states and kingdoms. He believed so. And also he had a thought that to be a single unified republic, it should be what? It should be a single unified republic, that it should be under one rule only. Fine. And this could be a basis for Italian liberty, that is to say Italian liberty or Italian development as well. Fine. So he had this vision. See what a great nationalist he was, isn't it? Okay, so Mazzini continuous opposition to monarchy and his vision of democratic republics for frightened the conservatives. Like Mazzini was very strenuous and very consistent with his efforts. He was very persistent and persevere. He had that quality of being perseverance. Fine. That is to say, he was relentless in his efforts to fight against monarchical forms and all. And that's why these conservative people, they they just got scared of him, just like means they thought like maybe some other Napoleon had come up in form of Giuseppe Mazzini. Fine. And that's why Duke Metternich again said that he is one of the dangerous person for our social order or for conservative order. Fine. So yes, this is what it means. Okay, let's answer this question. Who among the following hosted the Congress at Vienna in 1815? Can you say? Okay, yes. Austrian Chancellor Duke Metternich. Very good. Okay, moving further. Who among the following formed the secret society called Young Italy? Yes, Giuseppe Mazzini. Just now we read it. Fine. The Treaty of Vienna signed in 1815 to brought the conservative regimes back to power, to destroy the conservative parts of Europe, to introduce democracy in Austria and Prussia, to set up a new parliament in Austria. Why was it signed? So yes, to brought conservative regimes back to power. Fine. Yes, I hope you are answering along with me. Yes, which of the following statements is not true about Giuseppe Mazzini? He wanted the united Italian Republic, unified Italian Republic, that is to say, he founded an underground society called Young Italy. He wanted Italy to be a monarchy. He was exiled for attempting a revolution in Liguria. So, which is not true? Which is not true? Yes, he did not want Italy to be a monarchy, of course. Fine. Oh, one more question is this. When France sneezes, the rest of Europe catches cold. Who said so? Metternich, Austrian Chancellor, Duke Metternich. Fine. Okay. So, yes, till this we have completed your topics related to the revolutionaries, new conservatives, French Revolution, liberal nationalism, and the various classes of Europe, right? Now from here onwards, it's going to be so many fights and violence and all, right? But yes, all will culminate into the making up of the nation states and the emergence of the nationalism, right? Okay, so yes, age of revolutions in 1830. Let me repeat it again, that these revolutions will also sprang up firstly and foremost from France itself. Right? Here also we will see that after this revolution of 1848, France will become what? It will become republic, and here it will become constitutional monarch. Fine. And yes, obviously after France, obviously some of the states, they will come up again with their revolutions also. Yes. Okay, so the conservative regimes, they try to consolidate their power. Liberalism and nationalism came to be increasingly associated with revolution in many regions of Europe, such as the Italian and German states. The provinces of Ottoman Empire, that is like the Muslim empire part, Ireland and Poland, like means everyone was trying to be into a nation state. Fine. So yes, and conservative regimes, they were trying to have their powers back. Like in all these scenario of liberalism was going on, nationalism was going on. Fine. And the people from different empires, they were trying to take control of the various territories and all. So in that order, conservative regimes, they were trying to have their own powers also, right? These revolutions were led by the liberal nationalists belonging to the educated middle class elite, among whom were professors, school teachers, clerks, and members of the commercial middle classes, right? So amongst them, like during this scenario, when conservatives were trying to have their power, trying to have their monarchical rule being established at various territories of Europe. Fine. And in the spread of liberalism and nationalism feelings and all. Fine. In the provinces of even Ottoman Empire, Ireland and Poland, everywhere. So yes, various revolutionaries like your liberal nationalists belonging to the different educated middle classes, they were coming up with all these revolutions. Fine. Okay. So yes, first upheaval, obviously it took place in France in July 1830. Fine. Now before that, let me give you a brief prior information about this July revolution. It is popularly known as July revolution. Okay. July revolution also, it is also considered as second French revolution. Fine. It is even considered as mini revolution because it happened only for 3 days, right? And it happened on 25th of July, like it is bursted out on 25th of July 1830. Fine. And it was there for 2 days, right? Okay, till 29, so you can say like mid of 25th of July 1830. So actually what happened, during because of the effect of Treaty of Vienna, King Louis the 18, he came to power. Fine. But in 1824 he died. So after that, King Charles the 10th, he came to power. Fine. But he was not working in a good way, right? Rather he was working in more of a whimsical way, right? His decisions were erratic. Fine. He was making decisions and laws related to suppressing the freedom of press, right? He was going against the constitutional charter. He was having people, he rather liked to employ only those people who could blow his trumpets. Fine. He did not want any person who could go against him. Fine. So that was a kind of ruler King Charles the 10th was. Fine. He came to power after in 1850, not 1824 approx. Fine. And what happened, like because of all these situations, what happened? finally, and also because of the social and economic conditions and all these erratic decisions related to administration being taken by King Charles X, people like they just fled him away. Fine, he was being fled him away. He was being thrown by the liberal revolutionaries in July 1830. Fine, and instead Louis Philippe was given throne after that, right? And also France became constitutional monarchy one more time again. Fine. This revolution was very much important from the point that it again gave confidence to the liberal nationalist people or these revolutionaries that yes, they could still do something for their nationalist feelings. Fine. Because see, after Napoleon, what happened? These conservative people, they again came back to power, and again means the social, economic and political order, it just got changed tremendously, or complete upheaval was there. Fine, but again in July 18, these people, these liberal nationalists or these revolutionaries, they gain confidence that yes, they can still win. They again gain confidence in the philosophy of liberty, equality and fraternity. Fine, and yes, again we could see monarchy means constitutional monarchy with Louis Philippe at its head was established in France. And yes, as we see, as we as we know, as when France sneezes, the entire Europe catches cold. So yes, after this July Revolution, the neighbor of France, that is your Netherlands or Belgium, they get separated. Fine, Brussels, that is the capital of Belgium, like they broke away from the kingdom of Netherlands. They took their freedom also from them. One thing happened, so the second revolution we knew now. Fine, another important war of independence happened in Greece, right? Greece is a very important city of Europe, like it is considered as the cradle of European civilization. It is beautiful, no doubt, in its architecture and all, and it has various it has importance also from historical point of view also. And also, like, it has given us the concept of democracy. It gave us the concept of democracy, like, to the world. The various mathematical principles, yes. Our Olympic games, it also came from your Greece. Fine, so yes, it had importance, and so the people of Europe, they consider it very, very important to them. Fine, Greece was really like it was really like the importance that we hold for our pilgrim places, like for example the Kashi or Amritsar, Mathura and all. We have good feelings for these places in our hearts, isn't it? Similarly, Greece was also like that. It was also a place like from where Christianity evolves. Fine, like with civilization, it also sprang up in a way. Fine, so because of all these things, Greece had important place in the hearts of people of Europe since past. Fine, but it came into, like, it became the part of Ottoman Empire since 15th century. Ottoman Empire, like, it was a Muslim empire, like Islamic rule. Fine. So Greece was caught into the holds of Ottoman Empire since 15th century onwards. Fine. And Greek War of Independence is basically about, it is an event that mobilized nationalist feelings among the educated elite across Europe. And why it happened, like, across Europe, for this country, for this city of, like, your Greece, for this Greece, because, like, obviously it was very dear, and it is still very dear to European people. Fine, okay, and it was under the Ottoman Empire since 15th century onwards. Fine, the growth of nationalism in Europe is sparked of a struggle for independence in the Greeks in 1821. Fine, now whatever was happening, like, means this growth of nationalism was happening in Europe. Okay, so this even sparked a kind of feeling that yes, people of Greece, they also wanted to have their nation back from this Ottoman Empire. Fine, nationalists in Greece, they got support from other Greeks living in exile. Means every people who were being exiled by the Ottoman Empire, they were helping them. no doubt they were living outside Greece, but still, and also from many West Europeans as well. Fine. Why so? Because obviously the Greece was very much dear to all the European people. Fine. One of the example that we have is of your Lord Byron. Fine. Poets and artists, they praise the European civilization, right? They praise Greece as the basis of European civilization, and they mobilized public opinion to support its struggle against a Muslim empire, that is the Ottoman Empire. Means poets and artists even were involved in trying to bring nationalism in Greece and making them free from the Muslim empire, that is your Ottoman Empire, right? One of the example that we have of this poet is that your Lord Byron, one of the renowned poets in English literature. Fine, he was from England, he was an English poet, he organized funds, and later he even went to fight for Greece in the war, but he died of fever in 1824. But nonetheless, in 1832, we finally see that with the Treaty of Constantinople, Greece emerged as an independent nation state, like that it got freedom from the Ottoman Empire, right? So all these three things we saw in the age of revolutions from 1830 to 1848, starting from the France's July Revolution. Fine. Why means what was the importance of July Revolution? I just told you, it brought back the confidence among the liberal nationalist people and the French people that yes, there still lies the concept of liberty, equality and fraternity, and yes, they can still win from the conservative orders. Fine. Another thing is that constitutional monarchy established after July Revolution. After that, Belgium, it got separated from the United Kingdom of Netherlands, and finally in the Greece War of Independence, Greece, it got help around the Europe. It got help from people of Europe, right? Obviously, because it's very dear to the people there, and it was under the Ottoman Empire. And finally, in 1832, with the Treaty of Constantinople, the Greece, it emerged or it recognized as an independent nation state. You might also get the question, what do you mean, like, or what is Treaty of Constantinople? Fine. Or when did Treaty of Constantinople sign? Right? Yes. All these things are there only. Okay, so I think it is clear till yet. Okay, so which treaty recognized Greece as an independent nation? Yes, Treaty of Constantinople, just now we studied, isn't it? Okay, now another very important, very beautiful part of this chapter, that is your Romanticism. Yes, and it is related to what? The cultural movement, right? It's not only just with violence and fights and struggles, right, that a nation could be made, right? Rather, it can be made through cultural movements also, like through various cultures, traditions, language, dance, music, operas and all. Yes. So Romanticism stands for that Romanticism or cultural feeling or cultural movement, it can also develop the feeling of nationalism, and it could also make nations. Fine. How can it be possible? So let's see. Culture, it also play an important role in creating the idea of the nation. Fine. How come? A few minutes ago, not a few minutes ago, more than that, yes. Okay, I told you that during Republic Day or Independence Day, what we do, we play different patriotic songs, isn't it? Jai Ho, or maybe it's like your Vande Matram, right? We sing national anthem every day in the morning assemblies. Fine. Even during your holy, your festivals and all, we play music, and it just filled us with so much love and emotion and so much enthusiasm and everything, isn't it? Right. So similar role is played by culture also in the making up of nation as well, right? If it is possible for you, just listen to the song "ए मेरे वतन की लोगों" by Lata Mangeshkar ji, right? believe me, it's so beautifully being sung by her, obviously, like she is the nightingale, isn't it? Right? But yes, you definitely feel tears in your eyes, right? So yes, all these things means that song so beautifully commemorate our martyrs, isn't it? Yes. So yes, similar thing means, see, history, nations, they all belong to the same category itself, isn't it? Right now we are studying about nationalism in Europe. In the next chapter you will be studying about nationalism in India. Fine, we'll be learning that how nationalism it developed in our country. Fine. Okay, so let's come back. Okay, so yes, culture it played an important role in creating the idea of the nation as well. So art, poetry, stories, yes, music, it helped express shape nationalist feelings. Let me tell you, my grandmother, like she came to India after partition, like when she was very young, and she used to tell us so many stories, like how did our family return to India or come to India, and how did they settle at various different parts and all. So yes, fine. So these stories, everything, they connect us to our culture, to our traditions, to our country, right? Okay. So yes, romanticism is what? It is a cultural movement which sought to develop a form of nationalist sentiment, right? Okay. But yes, this movement it outrightly rejects the glorification of science and reason. Okay students, so yes, let me tell you, now from exam point of view you can directly get the question. Write a short note on romanticism. So this is the this is what, like this is the introduction that you can give. Fine. So initially you need to tell about the cultural movement, cultural part, right? Then you need to tell like what it rejects about the science and reason part. Fine. And it basically focus on heart, emotions and mystical feelings. Fine. That is how with culture and traditions we can develop the nationalist feelings by affecting these emotion part of ours. They created a sense of shared collective heritage and a common cultural past. Fine, obviously. So yes, this is what we mean by romanticism. Fine. In romanticism also we have one philosopher, that is your German philosopher Johann Gottfried Herder. Fine, Johann Gottfried Herder. Let me give you its year. Yes, it's a huge chapter. I myself had made notes for this to give you in a one shot, to give it to you in one shot. Yes. So yes, he his year on earth is like 1744 to 1803. Fine. So firstly he gave the theory of das walk. Das walk, that is to say, he said that the actual culture, right, the actual German culture, it could only be discovered among the common people. So that is his theory of das walk. Fine. First thing what he said, like he was a German philosopher from 1744 to 1803. Fine. He said he gave the theory of das walk and another like box geist. Fine. And what he yes, yes, what he said, like true German culture was to be discovered among the common people. That is the theory of das walk. Fine. He even claimed that folk songs, folk poetry and folk dances are essential to the nation building process. Fine, very important. What he said, that folk songs, folk poetry and folk dances were very much important for the nation building process. Fine. And also, like further, what he insisted on collecting. Fine. In collecting and recording, let me put it here. What he said, that these folklores must be collected, means collection must be done, and recording must be done of what, of these folklores, right, so that the culture could be preserved, to be transferred or to be given as a legacy to the coming generation. Fine. And yes, there is an example of Grimm brothers, German brothers. Fine. Your Jacob and Wilhelm. Fine. They both did their, means they acquired their law degree, but after completing their law degree, what happened, they they were very much interested in the collection and recording of these folk tales, and they spent their lifetime, like in a way 6 years they spent there in the collection of these folk tales. And finally what we see in 1812, they had this, like they published their first collection part. Fine. Okay, so yes, so the Grimm brothers, they collected the German folk tales. Fine. Okay, and what they did, like they believed that the folk tales they had collected were expressions of a pure and authentic German spirit. Fine. They were, it was very important. Fine. For what, like to transfer this romanticism or these nationalist feelings to the coming generation through what, through these folk tales and all, right? So this happened, and let me tell you what was the importance of this cultural movement, that these vernacular languages and the collection of local folklore, it was not just, they said that it was not just only to recover an ancient national spirit, it was just not only to commemorate the past or some historical aspect or some ancient national spirit, but also to add them with the modern nationalist message to the large audiences who were mostly illiterate. Obviously all people were not literate that time, so to make them also understand the romanticism or the cultural part is very very important. So that was the philosophy given by Johann Gottfried Herder. Fine. Okay. Okay, we can even find the this making up of nationalism or this spreading of nationalist feeling through one of the example of Poland as well. Yes, what happened, like there was a time like when this Poland, it was means poor Poland I would say, it was actually got divided among what, among this Austria, Russia and France, right? Okay, so yes, they actually divided them amongst themselves. Fine. And Russia, what he did, like he went into its um, extremity, and what he did, he banned this language Polish from the schools, and he asked the school authorities to teach only and only Russian language. It was imposed everywhere. Fine. But the people, they were not ready for this. Fine. They spread their nationalist feeling, means they tried to oppose this, right? There was an armed rebellion also, but it was being crushed by the Russian authorities. But still what they did, they means the clergies and the church people and all, they started, means they did not do armed rebellion again, but what they started doing, they started using Polish language during their prayer times, during their meetings, assemblies and all. Fine. And finally, as an authority, these people, these bishops and all, they were being sent to jail by the Russian authorities. So yes, means crushing was happening by the Russian authorities. Fine. But still Polish people, they were very much after their culture, right? Their language. Fine. So this was happening. And also there was one more person, Karol Kurpunski, who tried to spread the nationalist feelings for Polish through music and dance, and through the organization of operas and music, like, and he turned the folk dances like Polonaise and mazurka into the nationalist symbols. So yes, fine. So with this we see that romanticism is not just a superficial concept or something. Actually things happened in past, in history related to that. And there are example also, like in the form of Poland, the people there, they actually fought against the Russian authorities or their dominant authorities, right? With just by following their culture and with the help of like their language part. Fine. We have the theory of Johann Gottfried Herder as well, like who gave the theory of Volksgeist or Das Volk, that is to say the true culture, it existed within the common people as only. Fine. And that's why folk songs, folk poetry, folk dances, they should be preserved, and they should be collected and recorded and should be carried forward. Not only means languages and these cultural parts, they not only recover or they not only bring into memory the ancient nationalist feelings, but also they add on with what? They add on with the modern nationalist feelings as well. Fine. So this is what about romanticism is. Fine. So yes, with this we covered this topic of romanticism also as well. Next, there is again some hardship, some hunger, and some popular revolt after this your 1830s. Fine. And we'll be looking into it with a small water break. Fine. So you can also have a small sip of water. Let me also have it. Fine. Okay. Okay, so I think we all are done with our water breaks. Okay, fine. So this is where we are done with the romanticism part. We saw like how romanticism or the cultural movement, it can also develop the feelings of nationalism among the people. And yes, in your NCRT there is a very beautiful question written for this. Please do attempt this question and let me say, like, discuss the importance of language and popular traditions in the creation of national identity. Fine. So yes. Okay, so now let's move further towards, like, let's see like what all kinds of other hardships were being faced by the people of Europe in 1830s and later in 1848 as well. Fine. So yes, in 1830s we will see that there was a great economic hardship Europe was facing, right? And it was because of what? Because in the first half of the 19th century, it saw the huge increase in the population all over Europe. Fine. Rather, because of this, like as the population increased and means the people, they were not finding respectable or not respectable even, rather the particular jobs even to do works. Fine. So because of this increased population, food was less, work was less to be done by people, and there was so much economic hardship these people were facing because of this scenario. Fine. So yes, population, it got increased. Most countries, they were seeking the problem of unemployment. Fine. People were running here and there for the jobs. Fine. Population from rural areas, as there was less work in rural areas and all, what happened that they started migrating to cities of, right. This happened why? Because there was a kind of hailstorm and disaster condition also. Because of that, the food food production, it even got affected, and because of that food prices even got higher. Fine. Population increased, demand for food increased, food production is less because of the disastrous condition and all, and so obviously prices for food even got higher, right? And so the rural people, they started migrating towards the city areas. Fine. And it became then overcrowded slums in towns and in the cities, the areas of overcrowded slums, this was the scenario socially. Fine. Small producers, they were facing stiff competition from import of cheap machine made goods from England. See, England was the country like who developed industrially, or in the like through industrialization quickly than the other parts of the Europe. Fine. And means there they accepted the advent of industries and factories and new machines and all. And because of that, what happened, the goods that were being produced there, they were being produced by machines and all, so they were in huge numbers. Like there used to be mass production of goods because of machines and all. Obviously with hands you cannot produce that much goods, isn't it? That many goods and all. Fine. So because of the concept of economies of scale, what happened, the goods from England, they become cheaper. Fine. And so the small producers in towns, they were facing competition because the prices of the goods from England, they were cheaper. Fine. In comparison to these, and obviously as people were having not that much free hand now, because there were no jobs, they had less money in their hands. So yes, they cannot expend, they cannot spend more, right? So because of that, they were also facing competition from these cheap machine made goods. Fine. So that was again an economic hardship being faced by small producers. Fine. In those regions of Europe where aristocracy still enjoyed power, right? Where aristocracy was there, peasants struggled under the burden of feudal dues and obligations. Fine. So now, where aristocrats were there, the system of feudal system and obligation, it was still there. Fine. So the people who already did not have any money in their hands, they even had to pay these obligations. Fine. The rise of food prices and a year of bad harvest led to extensive poverty. Poverty, or you can say pauperism. Fine. Pauperism is a condition where there is extreme expansion of poverty throughout the region. Fine. In town and country. In 1848, like, so that was a kind of situation in 1830s that was prevalent there in entire Europe itself. Fine. Further, in even 1848, now again this is a kind of like a great landmark in the history of Europe. Why so? Because in this event, France, it will become republic now. Fine. So in 1848, due to food shortages and unemployment, like these were the major problems being faced by French people, brought the population of Paris, France, out on the roads. Right, they again came out of the roads. They were revolting against that constitutional monarch even now. Right, barricades were erected, means they like restricted the way of monarch from everywhere. And Louis Philippe, he was being asked to fled away, like, or to flee away or abdicate, right, from his throne. Fine, from his territory. Right. And finally, National Assembly, it declared France a republic. Yes, so second time now. Earlier in 1793 it became republic. Now in 1848 it again became republic. Fine. Granted voting rights to men only, means voting rights are again given only to men about 21 years of age. But yes, now there is no concept of means only those men are given rights who are about 25 years of age or who are propertied men. Means now all men are being given the voting rights who are about 21 years of age. And also, as we know that unemployment was one of the major problem being faced by France at this time, so National Assembly guaranteed right to work at this time. Fine. So this happened in 1848. Okay, let me tell you one of the incident also that happened in 1845. Fine. In the village of Silesia. Fine. Now in Silesia, what happened? As we just got to know that Europe was facing the problem of unemployment, people were not having enough work to do. Fine. So in Silesia village, right, here what happens, like there used to live weavers and contractors. So contractors, they used to give work to weavers, and out of that work, these weavers, they were earning their money. Fine. Now as there was paucity of work all around, so weavers, they were ready to do any work. So contractors, they were exploiting them because of this kind of situation. So they were asking them to do more, but they were paying them less. So one evening, what happened, these weavers, they reached to the contractors, and they asked for more money. Right, they asked for the deserved money for their work. Right, but these contractors, they tried to run away, and they actually run away, and but they returned with the military army and all, like some more people, and a kind of bloodshed happened there. Right, it is like popular as a Silesian revolt kind of thing. Fine. And yes, and in that bloodshed, 11 weavers, they got shot by these people, these contractors. Fine. So it was popular revolt that happened in Europe during 1845. Fine. So this is one of the things. Fine. So with this we covered your topic of hunger, hardship, and your popular revolt. And yes, 1848, after 1848, what happened? France became republic, right, by abdicating the king Louis Philippe. Okay, so romanticism, it refers to what? Which kind of movement? Cultural movement. Fine. Okay, Yes. Now, after 1848, obviously we saw the movement of peasants in the Silesian village. Now, let's see what the movement of liberals, and that also in the state of Germany, right? Let me tell you, Germany, today's Germany, was majorly covered by in the past with the kingdom of Prussia. Fine. Okay. So, parallel to the revolts of poor, peasants, and workers in many European countries in 1848, a revolution led by educated middle class was underway, right? They even revolted. Why would they be behind in doing revolutions or something, isn't it? Okay, so Germany, Italy, Poland, Austro-Hungarian Empire, everywhere, right? Men and women, all these like men and women of the liberal middle classes, they combined their demands for constitution and national unification. They also want constitution now, because obviously France now it had become republic. Earlier though it was like constitutional republic. Fine. They took advantage, these men, women and all, they took advantage of the growing unrest to push their demands, like what all hardships were going on that time. So they took advantage of that, and they tried to push their demands for the creation of a nation state on the parliamentary principles. Like they wanted to have constitution, they brought their demand forward, freedom of press and freedom of association. They wanted all these things. Fine. Okay, these German people, what they did, like all these people like middle class professionals, businessmen and prosperous artisans, they combined themselves together into a all German National Assembly. Fine. So in the German regions, a large number of political associations were made, right? Here we see all these people, they formed into the all German National Assembly. Fine. They come together, and this all German National Assembly people, they met themselves. Fine. And they come in the city of Frankfurt, and they decided to vote for an this German National Assembly. Fine. That is to say, the German regions, all these people, they come together in the city, and they form this all German National Assembly of 831 elected representatives. Fine. Then, and it happened on 18th May of 1848. Fine. Fine. This happened on 18th May of 1848. So this assembly, it came into existence. Fine. After that, in the church of St. Paul in the city of Frankfurt, what they happened, they went there, they sat there, and they started making the constitution. What happened, actually these people, they thought that they will be making constitution and they will be bringing it to the king and will ask him to accept it and be under the power of constitution now, that is to say, to be a constitutional monarch. So that is a kind of sweet dream these people had. Fine. Okay, so you got it. Political associations made out of middle class people, professionals, businessmen and prosperous artisans, right? They came to the city of Frankfurt, they made into this all German National Assembly with 831 elected representatives. They went into the church of St. Paul, sat there and made constitution there basically, right? On 18 May 1848, they drafted the constitution for a German nation to be headed by a monarchy subject to a parliament. They had their vision. When the deputies, means these people, when they offered this to the king there, that is the king who was there, like Frederick Wilhelm IV, fine, king of Prussia. I told you a little ago that mostly Germany was dominated or acquired by the kingdom of Prussia. Fine. So they went towards the king of Prussia, that is Frederick Wilhelm IV, and asked him to accept this constitution. But what he did, he rejected it and joined the monarchs and military people and other people, fine, to oppose the elected assembly. Now it was a kind of havoc being created there. What happened, these people, they went to the king and asked him to accept this constitution, but he rejected, and rather he joined with the aristocrats and other monarchs and military people. Fine. What happened, and parliament also, like there was parliament, but yes, monarchy was the supreme power. Fine. Parliament, it was dominated by middle class people. They even resisted, means the middle class people, like the some of the elected representatives, they were even against the demands of workers, artisans. Fine. So parliament even lost their support. king, aristocrats, military, they were already against these people. Fine. So with this gesture, actually parliament got eroded. Fine. It gradually lost its importance there. Fine. In the end, finally what happened to resolve this conflict and all, military troops were called and the assembly was forced to dissolve. Means this German National Assembly, it was forced to dissolve. Parliament, it just lost its support from the people, so it got eroded. Fine. And king, he was already not in the favor of having constitution. Fine. So he, along with the aristocrats and military people, what happened, he just fought against these German assembly people. So in all its way, we saw the fall of the Germany, fall of the hopes of liberal nationalist people of German to make Germany a nationalist, or a nation state. Fine. So yes, now you can recall this part from the painting of Frederick Sorrow also. Fine. Okay. So yes, this issue of extending political rights to now. Okay, one more aspect is there. What kind of participation did women show during the entire 19th century? So we know that women had always been a very good supporter for the revolutions that had been taking places in Europe since past. Like in French Revolution also, she participated directly also, like actively also, passively also. Fine. But uh, nonetheless, she was never given her deserving place ever, isn't it? Right. So here also we will see, like in German, like in this all German National Assembly also, she participated. Fine. Let me tell you how women used to participate passively. Like for example, whenever these men, they used to go out for doing any nationalist activity or something, these women, they used to take care of their homes, isn't it? And yes, we know that, like during French Revolution, they even made their own Jacobin clubs. Fine. Olympe de Gouges is one of the revolutionary women we know about, right, from your French Revolution part, right? So women had always been a great supporter of all these revolutions, and she even fought for her own rights as well, right, for her own political freedom and for her own equality, liberty, and freedom as well. Fine. Even when the Charter of Rights of Men only came up, right, only they were being introduced, so she fought there also. Fine. But nonetheless, she was not being recognized as such. Fine. So here also it happened. The issue of extending political rights to women was a controversial one with the liberal movement, in which large numbers of women had participated actively over the years. She had always participated actively. Fine. Women had formed their own political associations, founded newspapers, your Jacobin clubs, associations. Fine. Founded newspapers. She published and taken part in political meetings and demonstrations. Despite this, right, or in spite of all her efforts, they were denied suffrage. Suffrage means political freedom, political equality, during the election of the assembly. When even the Frankfurt Parliament, when this assembly was even being formed at that time also, convened in the Church of St. Paul, women were admitted only as observers to stand in the visitors gallery. Let me show that. This is your Frankfurt Parliament, and here this gallery is of women who are just sitting there as a spectators, as visitors. They are not allowed to speak anything here. Fine. So yes, that kind of treatment was given to women despite her all active participation or maybe passive participation. Fine. Okay. So this all happened. Fine. So no doubt, conservative orders or conservative forces, they were able to suppress this 1848 liberal movement. Fine. They could suppress that. But now they understood that people, they are not going to stop here only. Again, something or the other they will come up with. So it's better now what? To give them what they want. Yes. So what happens, like monarchs, they were beginning to realize that the cycles of revolution and repression could only be ended by granting concessions. Concessions, that is to say, like by giving them people what they want. Fine. To the liberal nationalist revolutionaries, they wanted what? They want constitution. Okay, fine. Let's be constitutional monarch. What's harm in that? Fine. They want parliament. Let's give them. They want recognition. They want participation in administration. Give them. They wanted to have unification. They wanted to make nation state. Let's give them. Fine. So that was their strategy, because at the end they just wanted to be in power. They did not want to overthrown from their thrones, right? So yes, in the years after 1848, autocratic monarchies of Central and Eastern Europe, right? Oops, some magic happened again. Europe began to introduce the changes that had already taken place in Western Europe before 1815. Fine, I told you the development or the changes that we see in Western Europe and Eastern Europe, they are different, isn't it? So before 1815, what all changes were being made in the Western Europe part, now the Central and Eastern Europe places, right? They even started thinking of implementing those changes, right? Thus, serfdom and bonded labor, they were abolished first and foremost, right? Both in Habsburg dominion and Russia, like they both were the important and the big or the large kingdoms of Central and Eastern Europe. I already explained you about the Habsburg dominion or Habsburg empire, isn't it? You might get a question to describe the extent of Habsburg empire. Fine, so you can have that mnemonics and it's very easy to learn that, right? Isn't it? Okay. Even the Habsburg rulers, they granted more autonomy to Hungarian people in 1867. Fine, in 1848, no conservative order or no monarch was ready to give freedom or liberty to the revolutionaries, right? Or to give power to people in any way. But then they uh, thought thought it advisable and it's of wisdom only to pivot their administrative order now by giving liberty and autonomy to people so that they will stay in power for longer period of time, right? So that was the thing happened. So that was the impact of 1848 revolution. Not only France became republic, but the other conservative orders and monarchs, they understood that what kind of government or society people want now. Fine. So yes, this happened. Moving further, yes, now, yes, because now people understood it. 1867 itself, we saw that Habsburg ruler, they started giving autonomy to people. Fine, in even 1861, Italy even got united. But yes, we will be studying firstly about German unification. So in Germany, what happened? The people or the king, obviously, he understood. Now, Germany was divided into various states. There, the kingdom of Prussia, he took that we can say a step to unify Germany, right? And he give what? He give order to his chief minister Otto von Bismarck. Fine. And actually, what happened? Through army, right, through fight and all only, like he tried to unify it. Fine. Otto von Bismarck is considered as the architect of the nation and he was a army personnel actually. Fine. So that's why the question came up like, can army be the architect of the nation? So here is the answer for that. Fine. So yes, nationalism before 1848, it was 1848, before 1848 it was related to democracy and revolution. Fine. But after nationalism, after 1848, it was more related to what? State power and political domination over Europe. Means after 1848, now conservative order, they did not want to give away with their powers in any way. So they themselves start making unification and they started making nation states so that they can be in power and just to make people also happy. Fine. It's a kind of win-win situation they got. Fine. So yes, this can be observed in the process by which Germany and Italy came to be unified as nation states. Nationalist feelings were widespread among middle class Germans, right? So yes, nationalist feelings were there. They wanted to become a nation state. Yes. Who in tried in 1848? Obviously, in 1848 they tried, right? They tried to unite the different regions of German confederation into a nation state, and they even tried to bring a constitution and to have parliament and all, but that was being rejected brutally by King Frederick Wilhelm IV, isn't it? So yes, this liberal initiative towards nation building was repressed obviously by the combined forces of the monarchy and the military. And it was at that time supported by junkers, even junkers, that is your large landowners of Prussia. Fine, so that happened in 1848, but now the scenario got changed, right? But after 1848, Prussia took the leadership of the movement of national unification. Fine, and what they did, he asked, like the king again asked his chief minister Otto von Bismarck, who was the architect of this process, right? And he asked him to carry out this process and what to do, like to unify the Germany, right? To make Prussian army that much efficient so that they can have wars with the respective nations, respective these places, these rations, these regions, fine, and can unify the Germany. Fine. So 3 wars happen from, like, in the span of 7 years with Austria, Denmark, and France. With Austria, Denmark, and France, 3 wars happen in the span of 7 years. Fine. And finally, it ended in Prussian victory. Fine. And finally, the unification process got completed. Fine. 18 January 1871 was the time when the king, Prussian king, obviously he was like, Prussian was the major kingdom or the dominant kingdom of the Germany, right? So obviously the king, Prussian king William I. In 1848, the king was Frederick Wilhelm IV. In 1871, we are talking about 18 January 1871, Prussian king was there, that is William I. He got into the process of coronation and he became king now. Fine. And this ceremony happened at Palace of Versailles in the presence of the princes and all the representatives of army or all the big people, along with the chief minister Otto von Bismarck. So he just helped in unifying the nation, that's it. And finally the throne came to Raja, that is your king, that is your William I. Fine, this happened. So the nation building process in Germany, it happened. Now it was just to make the nation, it was just unification of Germany. Now the thing come up to make, like, how the nation will be made now, because obviously Germany was divided into various kingdoms, isn't it? Prussia and other and all. Fine, 3 wars happened with Austria, France, and Denmark, right? So obviously in different parts there were different traditions, cultures being followed. So how to unify them, how their commonness could be bring to make them into a nation state. Fine. So make the nation to, like, to do this nation building process, Germany had demonstrated the dominance of Prussian state power. Finally, okay, this new state, it placed a strong emphasis on modernizing the currency, banking, and legal and judicial systems. Fine. And Prussian measures and practices, they often became a model for the rest of the Germany empire. Fine, or Germany nation, or the nation Germany. Fine. So this is how unification of Germany got completed, right? This is your Germany. Moving further, okay, let's answer this. In Prussia, who was referred to as Junkers? Yes, is your large landowners. Okay. Moving further, main function of Prussian Zollverein. Yes, we studied that in the liberal nationalism part, economic liberalism part. So what was the main function of Zollverein? Impose a custom duty on imported goods, abolish tariff barrier, reduce custom duties, impose new rules for trade. Abolish the tariff barrier, right? First point, we just studied that. Fine. Zollverein started in 1834 in Prussia. Refers to what? It was what? It was your custom union. Fine. Okay, yes. Now we move towards the making of other nation state, that is your Italy. Fine. It happened basically in the year of your 1861. Fine. See, Italy in 1815, it was divided into several states. Fine, various kingdoms actually. If we see this table, we will see, like, only this Sardinia Piedmont part was only under the Italian king's house, right? That is House of Savoy. Rest, like the northern part, right, Lombardy, it was under Austrian Habsburg Empire. Middle part, it was with Pope, and the southern part, that is Kingdom of Two Sicilies, it was with Bourbon kings of Spain. Fine. So its unification also happened in three different ways actually. Fine. So Italians were scattered over several dynasty states, as well as they were multinational, means states, as well as they were under the Habsburg Empire also, and we saw that Habsburg Empire itself was diversified with so many regional languages and cultures and traditions and all, isn't it? Okay, so during the middle of the 19th century, Italy was divided into 7 states, out of which only one, that is Sardinia Piedmont, was under, means it was ruled by Italian princely house. Fine. Okay, so we know that 𝐷𝐄𝐶 Mazzini, he tried his level best to unify Italy during his lifetime, but he could not succeed as such. But yes, but later on, his work was being carried out by the Italian prince. Fine. So yes, 𝐷𝐿𝐶 Mazzini, he had formed a secret society, that is Young Italy, to spread his goal or idea of unifying Italy. We knew that he had a belief also that nation states, they are the natural they are the natural existence of mankind, right? And also Italy could only be liberate, or it could only achieve its liberty with its unification only. Fine. So the failure of revolutionary uprisings in 1831 also, with 𝐷𝐿𝐶 Mazzini, and in 1848 also, meant now that the duty fell on Sardinia Piedmont, right? That is the King Victor Emmanuel II. Fine. Here we just saw Piedmont, like Sardinia Piedmont, it was under the House of Savoy. That is the Italian princely house. King was King Victor Emmanuel II, to unify the states through war. Fine. In the eyes of the ruling elites of this region, a unified Italy offered them the possibility of economic development and political dominance. Now, what was the selfish ambition that the ruler had here? That he thought that with the unification only, he could achieve the economic development and political dominance for Italy. Fine. With a small part of Italy being under his control, he could have little economic development, right? A little money as well. But if there is a whole complete Italy is there in front of him now, there will be better development he can think about, right? And also his power will also increase, isn't it? So yes, so he had that ambition in his mind. So through a diplomatic alliance, exactly, he has Chief Minister Cavour. Fine. So for the Austrian Habsburg Empire, that is the northern part, what he did, he he was basically Cavour was a wealthy and educated person. He was wealthy and educated person, and he knew France and he knew French better than Italian. Fine. So with diplomatic alliance, right, what he did, he took the help of France and he fought with the Austrian Habsburg Empire, and he won the northern part of Italy. Fine. And he succeeded defeating the Austrian forces in North Italy in 1859. Then what happened in the southern part? 𝐷𝐿𝐶 Garibaldi was given the task of making the southern part, that is the two kingdoms of Sicilies, which were under the Bourbon house or Bourbon dynasty of Spain, to be a part of Italy, right? So 𝐷𝐿𝐶 Garibaldi, what he did, he collected the support of peasants there, and he collected all the armed volunteers and all, and under his leadership, what happened, the southern part, it got united with the Italian part, and the middle part, that was with the papal state or with the Pope, it came themselves only, right? They did not war, they did not fight anything, nothing happened there, and they just became the part of Italy by themselves. Fine. So 1860, they marched into South Italy and the kingdom of the Two Sicilies, and succeeded in winning the support of the local peasants in order to drive out the Spanish rulers. Fine. In 1861, Victor Emmanuel II was proclaimed King of United Italy. So finally in 1861, this unification process got completed. Fine. So yes, 1861, he was proclaimed as the King of United Italy. Fine. the patient, see, now the people means there was so much diversity, or rather I should say there was so much differences in Italian state, that the people there, they did not understand like what actually the Italy is. When they were having this slogan of La Italia, they were thinking that it must be the wife of King Victor Emmanuel II. Fine, they were unaware of this liberal nationalist ideology. They did not know about that. And today also we will see it in Italy, various different dialects, like even Italian, if it is being spoken in different parts, but it is being spoken with different dialects only. Fine, so yes, that was a kind of like patchwork was Italy at that time. Fine, but with the efforts of King Victor Emmanuel II, Chief Minister Cavour and Giuseppe Garibaldi, it got united finally. And in 1861, we see that Victor Emmanuel II, it was like he was proclaimed as the king of United Italy. And yes, later on, what will happen? Yes, you can see like so many states are there, and finally, it gets united. Italy gets united. Fine. And yes, finally, with the change of currency, banking, legal system, and judicial aspects and all, Italy, it like there was a nation building process by the king. Fine. So this was about the unification of Italy part. So who among the following was proclaimed the first king of United Italy? So yes, Victor Emmanuel II. Just now we studied that, isn't it? Which one of the following states was ruled by an Italian princely house before the unification of Italy? So only Sardinia, Piedmont. Only this one was under the Italian princely house, isn't it? Yes. Now let's go into the strange case of Britain, right? But before that, just take a let's take a quick water break. Fine, last water break, and then we'll just be completing this chapter. Fine, okay. Okay, students, so I think with this we are just going towards the end of the chapters now, right? End of the topics of for this chapter, right? Okay, so here we come to the strange case of Britain. Now why it is called as a strange case? Because unlike in the unification processes of Germany and Italy respectively, here there was not as such direct bloodshed or violence or fight or war something. Rather it was done more of a kind of like dominance by the England government, right? Okay, so before that, let's look at like this is your United Kingdom. Here it's like your France. Fine, here is like these are a group of separate islands there in the European region. Fine, so this is your England. uh, Yes, this is your England, fine, and there is Wales, there is Scotland, and there is your Ireland, like Northern Ireland, fine. So with all these together, they make your Britain part, fine. So actually, see what happened like Great Britain, right? In Britain, the formation of the nation state was not the result of any sudden upheaval or any revolution. It was the result of a long drawn out process like talkings, diplomacy, and like controlling dominance and all, right? So that's why it is considered as, or it is called as, the strange case of Britain's by the historians, right? So if the question comes up like what, why it is called as a strange case of Britain, so you have the answer here now, right? Because there was no such sudden upheaval or revolution as such, but rather a long drawn out process. So as I told you that um, Britain was like full of various ethnicities here. Like there were English people, Welsh were there, Scots and Irish people were there. Fine. Initially, like in 1688, initially England England, we can see like he considered, like he understood the pivotal that was happening in the world because of the industrialization, and so he accepted that pivots, and so he became like here it firstly became the constitutional, or sorry, parliamentarian monarch. Fine. So firstly, there the parliament was established here. Fine. And later on, gradually he took control of Scots, then your Ireland, and yes, Wales was already there with him. Fine. So there was no British nation. There was no Britain as such. Fine. There was England, Scotland, Ireland, and your Wales. Fine. Prior to the 18th century, the primary identities of the people who inhabited this British Isles, like this group of islands that is called as Great Britain. Fine. So there were English, Welsh, and Scots and Irish people were there. All of these ethnic groups had their own cultural and political preferences or traditions, right? They all had their own way of living style and standards and everything. Fine. So, but as the English nation, it steadily grew in wealth. English nation, that is, we are talking about England. Fine. So, as England, it grew with wealth, importance, and power because of the industrialization also. It was able to extend its influence over the other nations of the island. Fine. English Parliament, which had seized power from the monarchy in 1688 because of the protracted fights, right? Because of the protracted, you can say, like, there is a terminology, let me tell you. Protracted conflicts, yes, because of the protracted conflicts. Protracted conflicts means what? Means the conflicts which were being done in England amongst various people living there. Fine, right? So it was a kind of communal struggle between communal groups for their basic needs. Fine. So that happened in England, no doubt. Fine. But in 1688, English Parliament, it seized power from monarchy. Okay. It was the instrument through which a nation state with England at its center came to be formed. Right. So now England, like, they became the center part of this unification process now. Later on, what happened with diplomacy talks and all, and the Act of Union of 1707, England and Scotland, they resulted in the formation of United Kingdom of Britain. Fine. Meant that England was able to impose its influence on Scotland now. So the Scotland people, they are not able to use their language, their Gaelic language or the other dialects. They are not able to wear their attires. Fine. Because England has what? Influence on Scotland. Other thing is that these islands, basically, they were dominant Christian communities. Fine. But the Christianity, it was also further divided into Protestants and Catholics. In Scots or in Scotland, they were mostly inhabited by Catholics, but in England, they were mostly inhabited by Protestants. But still, in Parliament also, English people, they were dominating or having influence over Scots, right? And in religion way also, they were dominating Scots. So there was a kind of a stifle. Okay, British Parliament was henceforth dominant by its English members only. No doubt Scotland was there, but still English people were dominating. Growth of British identity meant Scotland's distinctive culture and political institutions were systematically suppressed, like their language, their attires, their religion, their various rituals, or their various religious beliefs, mindsets, and all, they were being suppressed. The Catholic clans that inhabited the Scottish Highlands, means Scotland had some highlands, like geographically, so the inhabited of those places, they suffered terrible repression, means they were being brutally repressed, they were being brutally beaten up by and all, whenever they attempted to assert their independence. Whenever these Catholic clans, they tried to have their independence, they were being repressed by the English people. The Scottish Highlanders, mean the people who used to inhabit the highlands of Scotland, they were forbidden to speak their Gaelic language or wear their national dresses, and large number of people, they were forcibly driven out even from their homeland. Right? They were being exiled, they were being asked to go away or leave their homelands even. So that kind of repression or suppression was being done by English people over Scotland's. Fine. And others also. Ireland was a country, so in a way, like, but Scotland, like, it was under the influence of England only. Fine. Ireland was a country deeply divided in Catholics and Protestants. Here also, the same scenario was there. Like, English helped the Protestants of Ireland to establish their dominance over largely Catholic country. Fine. Here also, English people, they tried to have the influence of Protestants only. Catholic revolts against British dominance, it was suppressed. Fine. Whatever Catholics they were trying to revolt about, it was being suppressed by the British dominance. After a failed revolt led by Wolfe Tone and his United Irishmen. Fine, Wolfe Tone and his United means he was the person from Ireland, right? He revolted against England, but he was being forcibly repressed. Ireland was forcibly incorporated into the United Kingdom in 1801. And finally, this Ireland, this upper part, not the southern part, it is still your Republic of Ireland. Fine. This northern part, it became the part of United Kingdom in 1801. Fine. And a new British nation was formed through the propagation of dominant English culture only. No doubt, initially there were four important ethnic groups: English, Scots, Irish, and Welsh. But by the end of this unification process, and this unification even happened not by the people itself, like, for example, in France, we saw people they made their nation. In Germany and Italy, the rulers themselves they made their nation. But here, what happens? These isles, fine, these group of isles, they were being taken force, they were being taken control by the England, fine, one by one, fine, by having their influence or by having their control and power on these respective lands, fine. So, and English culture became dominant over these isles, fine. So this happened, and so the symbols of New Britain, they were actively promoted, and the older nations, they survived only as subordinated partners only, fine. British flag, the Union Jack, it became the symbol of this Great Britain, fine. National anthem, that is God Save Our Noble King, became English, became the language, right? So this is how the strange case of Britain was there, fine. So this is how we learned about the unification process of various states: Germany, Italy, and Britain part, right? Let's move further and answer this question. So which one of the following statements is false regarding the Act of Union of 1707? It was an agreement between England and Scotland. It was an agreement between England and Ireland. It resulted in the formation of United Kingdom of Great Britain. It gave England control over Scotland. Yes, England and Ireland. It was not an agreement between England and Ireland, right? Okay, so yes, we made the nations now. Now it's time to give faces to these nations. Fine. Rulers have face, but did do nations have face? So yes, that means to say we are talking about allegories. Allegories are basically the abstract ideas who are being personified in some way or the other. For example, justice lady, है ना? If we are talking about justice lady, we picturize a lady having scales in her hand and having she is just blindfolded and all, right? So that's the symbol of your justice. Similarly, some nations like France, Germany, Britain, and all, they were also being given faces of females only. Fine. So artists in the 18th and 19th centuries, they found a way out of personifying nations, and they represented country as if it were a person. Why and only females? Because yes, females, no matter what, how much they suffer, how much struggles they face in their lives, but they always come up stronger, just like these respective nations, isn't it? So I think that's the best explanation why artists chose only female figures to represent the various nations. Okay, moving further. So nations were then portrayed as female figures. Female form that was chosen to personify the nation, it did not stand for any particular woman in real life. Like they were taken like random. Like they did not see, like there was not a actual women being lived related to that face or something. Fine, they were just imaginative ones only. It gave the abstract idea of the nation a concrete form. Fine. Female figure became an allegory of the nation. They became the representative of the nations or allegory of the nations. Fine. Allegory is a symbolic or literal expression of an idea, right? It is a symbolic or an literal expression of idea. French Revolution artists used the female allegory to portray ideas, liberty, justice, and republic. Fine. These ideals, like for example, this justice lady I was talking about. Fine. So this is the allegory for justice. Justice, liberty, equality, nation. These are the abstract ideas or feelings. We cannot see feelings. We cannot see, or they do not have any shape or something, right? But we are personifying them as any person. Fine. These ideals were represented through specific objects or symbols, just like these. The attributes of liberty. Now, like in French Revolution, we are talking about France. They have red cap or broken chain. Like justice is generally a blindfolded woman carrying a pair of weighing scales. Fine. So in French Revolution, we gave the red cap. It was given to the slaves who are free now. Fine. So red cap is there, and broken chains that show that the slaves are no more in chains, or they are no more bound to somebody, right? Marian, a popular Christian name, it became the allegory of French nation. Fine. Her characteristics were drawn from those of liberty and republic. Red cap, right? Red cap is there. Tricolor, like she's wearing she's wearing dress related to the tricolor of French flag, and the cockade, right? She's having a cockade. Fine, cockade like ribbons and all. Fine, liberty. Yes, statues of Marian were erected in public squares to remind the public of the national symbol of unity and persuade them to identify with it. To tell people that yes, they all are united under this one symbol, right? Fine. Marian images were marked on coins and stamps as well, right? Her ideals were being erected at various roads and or at various public places, even on coins and stamps also, right? Moving further, we have the allegory of Germany, that is Germania. It became the allegory of German nation. It wears a crown of oak leaves. You can see here oak leaves, as the German oak stands for heroism. Fine. And yes, here you have the list of the symbols, like there is broken chain is there, right? There is breastplate with eagle, crown of oak leaves, sword is there, olive branch is there around around the sword, then rays are there of rising sun, and black, red, and gold tricolor is also there, and they all symbolize, or they all have signals one thing or the other. Let me tell you children, that you might get any question related to MCQ or something related to any of these, so please memorize them nicely, these allegories as well, and their symbols and what they signify. Fine. Okay, so moving further, so what did the crown of oak leaf symbolize? It symbolizes heroism. Just now we studied. Okay, so moving further to the last and final segment of this chapter, that is your nationalism and imperialism. Let me tell you, I am feeling very, very happy that yes, we are finally at the last segment. Fine. Okay, so yes, nationalism and imperialism. Initially only I told you that nationalism is what? It is an ideology of making nations. It is the superiority belief in making of a nation state, and nation state is what? It is made by the group of people who have some commonness amongst themselves related to their shared past or common history or common culture or traditions or something. Fine. Imperialism is like the extreme form of nationalism in which these nation states, they try to dominate the other parts of the means the other nations, right? They are trying to expand their territorial expansions with imperialism. Our country was also an imperialist country under the rule of Britain for so many years, right? So Britain was also doing what? He was spreading this imperial movements only, and our nationalism is actually the result of this anti-imperial movement that we fought during our independence struggle. Fine. So yes, let's have a Look here. So actually, this we will be studying related to the Balkan area, that is the southeastern European area. There were few areas like Balkans are what? These are the small fragmented areas which were under the Ottoman Empire. These smaller areas or countries or places, right? Like today's Balkan comprises of what? Romania, Bulgaria, Albania, Greece, Macedonia, Croatia, Bosnia, Herzegovina, Slovenia, Serbia, and Montenegro. Together, they are called as Slavs. Right. So these Slavic countries or these Slavs, they form these Balkan areas, and they were under the huge Ottoman Empire. Right. So as the feeling of nationalism was spreading around Europe, so obviously it reached to this area also. And these people, they understood that also, okay, we also have some commonness in ourselves. Fine. And we were never under the rule of this Ottoman Empire or some foreign power as such. So why are we being ruled by these people? Fine. So they started fighting amongst them, with them. Fine. So uh, actually also these people, these Ottoman Empire, they tried their level best to hold them together. But what happened? The nationalist feelings, they spread. Fine. So yes, the most serious source of nationalist tension in Europe after 1871 was the Balkans. Balkans in today's time, it comprised of all these areas. Inhabitants of these areas, they are called as Slavs, and a large part of the Balkans was under the Ottoman Empire. Spread of the ideas of romantic nationalism, that is to say the cultural movement. Yes, these people or these nations, they have their own some culture or traditions or something, isn't it, in the Balkans, together with the disintegration of the Ottoman Empire, made this region very explosive. Why so? Because see, firstly, these regions respectively, they fought with the Ottoman Empire to gain their independence. Later on, what happened with the ambition of their territorial expansion amongst themselves? They started fighting amongst themselves as well. For this, for the increase of their territories. Fine. Firstly, they fought with the Ottoman Empire and they made themselves nations. And then they started fighting amongst themselves for increasing their territories. Fine. Although all through the 19th century, Ottoman Empire tried to strengthen itself through modernization and internal reforms. But here was, means it was very little success, means he could not succeed as such, because the people here are more or less, they were driven by romantic nationalism, right? Cultural movements, they were very much attached to their culture, traditions, and language, right? So no matter what, Ottoman Empire tried to strengthen the power and control through modernizing things, by giving reforms, by making changes and all, but it could not succeed as such. And what happened? This area became very explosive as such. Fine. Spread of the ideas of romantic nationalism brought the feeling of nationalism among the Balkan people. Okay, the claim for independence of Balkan people was based on nationality, right? Balkan people, they wanted freedom from the Ottoman Empire, and rebellious nationalities thought to win back their long lost independence, right? They tried to win their long lost independence. Balkan area became an area of intense conflict. Fine, they were like, means there was so much scuffle and conflicts was going on, fights, wars, and all were going on. The jealousies and internal rivalries made the Balkan states fear and distrust each other. Fine, these people, firstly, they fought with the Ottoman Empire. Okay, now they are having fear and distrust among each other also. So they were fighting and having war amongst each other. They wanted a little territorial expansion also. Fine, so all these things were happening. It also became the center for big power fights among European powers. They fought for trade and colonies, right, to increase their military powers. Now, in the rest of the Europe, what was happening, like as industrialization was spreading, so those established European powers, they were trying to find out more colonies or more areas to expand their businesses or trades, or the places for more of raw materials, right? And the places from where they can sell their goods, or the market, you can say. Fine. So this area, like, is a very explosive now. Fine. Firstly, Balkan areas. Balkan means what? Small fragmented areas, or these nations, right? Small nationalities. They are break into different small points, which were being um, ruled by the Ottoman Empire. Ottoman Empire tried its level best to modernize and bring internal reforms, but all was in vain, right? And these Balkan areas, out of the romantic nationalism, they tried to what? They tried to fight with the Ottoman Empire, and they got their long lost independence. Fine. Now they are having the feeling of distrust amongst each other only, so they were fighting amongst themselves. Okay, this is about this area. Now the established European powers like Britain, France, and all, right, Austria and all, now what they were doing as they became nations, Germany, Italy and all, they wanted places, because of industrialization and all, they wanted more of states or more of colonies or nations in which they can expand their trades, right, for markets where they can sell their produced goods, and other the places from where they can have the cheap raw materials. Fine. So they were also fighting. So it was all kind of thing was going on that time. Fine. Russia, Germany, England, Austria, Hungary wanted to gain control over the Balkan regions. Because of that increase in the European power thing, this led to a series of wars in the region and finally culminated into the First World War. Fine. Because of this extreme nationalism, fine, amongst the Balkan regions, and imperialism amongst the various other European powers, both culminated into what? Into the First World War, the disastrous event our history witnessed, right? Our mankind history witnessed in life. Fine. So this happened there. Okay. Nationalism aligned with imperialism. Fine. Nationalism in that Balkan area and imperialism of those established European powers, they led to disaster in 1914. Meanwhile, many countries in the world which had been colonized by the European powers, including our country India, right? We were even made imperial country by the Britain or the England, right? So in the 19th century, began to oppose imperial domination. So later we will see the anti-imperial movements that developed everywhere were nationalist. That further will lead into the making of nation states only. We only means we even become nation states because of this anti-imperial movement, isn't it? So in the sense that they all struggle to form independent nation states. So at the end, this is fine that making of nation states is universal and instinctful, right? That is to be there. Nation states will be formed, fine, and were inspired by a sense of collective national unity forged in confrontation with imperialism part. European ideas of nationalism were nowhere replicated, right? This way nationalism or nation states were not came into existence later on, for people everywhere developed their own specific variety of nationalism. Fine. They even discovered the definitions, or they identified nationalism in their own ways. Fine. But the idea that societies should be organized into nation states came to be accepted as natural and universal. Here also, no doubt, anti-imperial movement happened. But later on also, because of that anti-imperial movement, what happened? Nation states only came into existence out of the sense of collective belongingness or collective national unity. So it is being considered that nation states came to be accepted as the natural and a universal concept. Fine. But yes, some wisdom needed to be used whenever such kind of things or such kind of theory came into the society. Fine, right? Excess of anything is bad at the end, isn't it? Yes. So with this, we come to the end of this chapter. You will definitely be getting question from this. Define imperialism, differentiate between nationalism and imperialism, define balkanization. Fine, define balkanization part is there, right? Okay. And yes, let me tell you few more questions I have written here. Yes. Okay, this you will be writing. Fine. Then you may even be asked about the Ottoman Empire, right? So with every topic, I let you know even the questions. Fine. This is the list of your various several important dates and years which are mentioned in the chapter. Please go through them whenever you get the notes here. Fine. These are the important questions. Please, please, please practice the question. Writing is very, very, very important. Nothing matters your concept. Nothing means whatever you have understood is one thing, but what all you can write into your papers nicely, very nicely, that only can help you fetching good marks in your exams, right? So please practice, please practice. Yes. Okay, so all these questions are there. Please do them. And if you have any queries, I have asked questions also in between the in during the lecture, so please answer them in the comment section. If there is anything doubtful or anything, we will definitely be having some or the other doubt sessions, so live doubt sessions, so definitely come over there. And yes, if you like this video, please like it, share it with your friends also, right? Okay. Yes, so all these questions are there. Fine. Please practice them. It is very, very important. And yes, I'm very, very thankful to you um, for giving me your time, right? And if there is anything you want to say, like if you want to ask or something, please write in the comment section. So yes, thank you so much, students. Have a great day. Have a great, great, great year ahead. And yes, we'll be coming up with more of such one shot lecture chapters, right? Okay. I think that's it. Okay, bye bye, take care everyone.